She never did.
Yeah, I think Senator Blackburn would quarrel with you on that. But
Well,
that's
I will
up to the
quarrel
two
with
of
you as to Reed, somebody that you mentioned I never heard of.
Reed Hoffman.
So who gave the order to flag records related to President Trump?
To flag records for President Trump?
To flag any records which included his name.
I'm not going to discuss anything about that with you, Senator.
Eventually, you're going to have to answer for your conduct in this, and you won't do it today, but eventually you will. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
I got to
Mr.
interject
Chairman?
something here.
Mr. Chairman.
Pam.
Mr. Chairman, since Senator Durbin referred to me, I would really appreciate the opportunity to correct the record.
Proceed.
Because Senator Durbin knows I repeatedly asked for those flight logs. I brought up the subpoena. You even shut down the committee because you didn't want that, and you know I submitted that in writing, and you continue to misrepresent that, and I am not going to let that record stand.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead, Senator Durbin.
I just want to make it clear that the reason the committee business ended was that your side invoked the 2-hour rule. Point number 2 is I asked you if you wanted any documents like flight logs to put it in writing. You never did.
Yes, sir, I did, and your staff knows that I did.
No,
We'll submit, once again,
Send me a copy of
the
that, please.
information to you. We've done that several times, but we'll be happy to, once again, send it to
disagree.
you. I think your staff doesn't show that to you.
Well, as I started to say about the emolument clause, and Democrats bringing that up in regard to Qatar, back in March of 2016, they didn't care anything about my bringing up the emolument clause in regard. I wrote to the Obama Justice Department. That letter was based on Secretary Clinton's 2009 to 2013 financial disclosures when she was Secretary of State. Those disclosures showed that her husband participated in at least 62 events with foreign states. Some of those were speaking events with connections to foreign governments, and some speaking events were financially supported by foreign governments. 2 examples, Bill Clinton received hundreds of thousands of dollars for appearance sponsored by Middle Eastern governments. Bill Clinton also received $200,000 for a speech connected to the Chinese government, and I don't recall getting any help from my Democrat colleagues on that investigation. Senator Graham.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. So I want to make sure I got this clear. If a Democrat or a Republican senator has a problem with a grant that's been canceled or reduced, you would be glad to talk to them.
Yes, Senator, and I have been doing that as well.
There have been Democratic members who called you,
They have spoken to my office, yes, Senator.
and you've tried to respond.
On either side of course, if it has anything to do with law
So-
enforcement or victims,
And that includes Senator Durbin. If he's got a problem, he can call you and you'll try to respond.
absolutely.
Thank you. How many illegal immigrants are in Chicago?
Ooh.
Does anybody know?
I do, countless. What we have seen since January 20th, Senator Graham, is a 1,000% increase in violent attacks against our ICE officers.
Right. But I just want to know, is there like 10 or 100,000? Does anybody know?
There have been multiple, and we have made multiple arrests, of course, involving violent gangs
Yeah,
in Chicago,
Right.
throughout Illinois.
Right. So
That was live from Capitol Hill, where Attorney General Pam Bondi answered questions from senators. Next, we'll turn to House Speaker Mike Johnson, who is addressing the media on the 7th day of the government shutdown. Take a listen.
About the good versus evil thing, and he said a lot of Jewish people today are dejected because they see these protests around the globe and against the wrong side. And I just said to Sid, and I'll read it to you, I brought my Bible in here this morning. Let me just say, I said, Sid, I'm always comforted by this passage in the Psalms, the Old Testament, the Christian Old Testament, but this is the Psalm of the Jewish people, the Psalm of David, Psalm 37. And it says, commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do this. I'll read it to you. Trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do this. He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, the justice of your cause like the noonday sun. It says, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when men succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. I told my friend Sid on the radio, and he was comforted by it, and I think others will be as well. We're all comforted by this. I know that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is fully in control. We'll let that rest there. Let me talk about the shutdown here real quick, and I promised you just 5 fast facts, 5 key facts, okay? I'm going to start with Leader Schumer's record, because he is leading the opposition, and he is the one telling the Democrats to keep the government shut down. Chuck Schumer has been in Congress for 44 years. He was first elected to the House in 1981. Just for reference, I was 9 years old. I was in the 3rd grade when Chuck Schumer came here to Congress. Throughout his entire career, he has been very, very consistent about the necessity of keeping the government open until just now. In fact, I want to read to you an excerpt from 7 months ago, his floor speech on March 13th, 2025. This is Senator Chuck Schumer in March of this year. Quote, on the Senate floor, while the CR bill is very bad, the potential for a shutdown has consequences for America that are much, much worse. I believe it is my job to make the best choice for the country to minimize the harms of the American people. Therefore, I will vote to keep the government open and not shut it down, unquote. Now, what was Chuck Schumer talking about? The exact same bill that is on the floor today. That's what he himself said. And he did vote to keep the government open. And then, during an interview with Jake Tapper on CNN following that vote, on March 14th of this year, he said, quote, I'm proud I did it. I know I did the right thing, unquote. That is Chuck Schumer himself. Today's the exact same scenario. It is the exact same vote. It is the exact same spending levels. And he has no reason whatsoever to do anything different, except for the politics. So that's fact number 2. Fact number 1 was Schumer's record. Fact number 2 is his calculation today. It is purely about politics. He is recognizing the reality of the political winds changing in the state of New York. As I mentioned yesterday, they are likely to elect a Marxist to be the mayor of New York City, and Chuck Schumer is terrified by that. He's been in Congress a long, long time, and he is not the flavor of the day. He's not far enough left for the Marxists, and he knows he's going to get a challenge from his left flank. So he has to show a fight against President Trump, no matter how ridiculous it is, no matter how distracting it may be to the actual issues of the day. He's got to do that. Democrats have been in the political wilderness since last year's election. I got a couple of numbers for you here. Just over a week ago, Quinnipiac released the latest poll, the lowest favorability rating for the Democrat Party ever recorded. They're at about 30%. 30% favorability. Democrats have hit historic lows in poll after poll since the beginning of this year. Wall Street Journal poll, CNBC poll, the Pew survey, et cetera, et cetera. You've all seen it. Many of you have reported on it, and that is a fact that is inescapable. Third fast fact this morning, the Democrats' record on the CRs. You know about Chuck Schumer's record, but they've all done it. Democrats and Republicans have worked together to pass 13 CRs to keep the government open under the Biden administration in the previous 4-year term. Democrats supported every CR close to unanimously in the House and the Senate. In fact, their average is 99%. 99% of the Democrats who are voting no right now voted yes 13 times on the almost exact same, word for word, very simple CRs to keep the government open. But they won't do it now. The fourth fast fact this morning is the actual cost of the Democrats' CR counterproposal. I showed you all the graphics and all the evidence, and it's still there on my website at speaker.gov. You can go and see. The Democrats' counterproposal, what they're demanding to reopen the government and get it working for the American people again, would result in nearly $200 billion being spent on health care services for illegal immigrants and other non-citizens. It's enough to fund the entire children's health insurance program, $200 billion. And that's just part of the $1.5 trillion in new spending that they want to hoist upon the American people for big liberal wish lists in the middle of a very simple 7-week stopgap funding measure to keep the lights on. Fifth fast fact, and I'll take your questions, the cost of the government shutdowns for real people. So this results in crippling economic losses right now. These are the latest numbers. We've been assembling these, and I'm sure many of you all have been reporting on it. Each week the shutdown continues, it will wipe out an estimated $15 billion in our gross domestic product in our country. A month-long shutdown would mean not just 750,000 federal civilian employees furloughed right now, but an additional 43,000 more unemployed Americans across the economy, because that is the effect, the ripple effect that it has in the private sector. You could go state by state, and we could have charts and graphs this morning and show you what it's going to mean to every state, but what the shutdown means in the state of New York, for example, that's Chuck Schumer's state. The impact there is a decline of $1.2 billion per month in GDP. That is the pain that is being wrought. And I, again, have to mention that when you shut down, as they have, women, infants, and children nutrition programs, veterans health services, the disabled, the elderly who receive health care at home, all these programs are now being shuttered because the funding streams have stopped. We have troops, we have Border Patrol agents, TSA agents that are all serving, protecting all of us, protecting the country without pay right now. Real hardships for real families, and it cannot drag on any longer. We are pleading with the Democrats in the Senate to do the right thing. The Republicans are united 100%, and we have proven it with our votes. The President, the Republicans in the Senate, and of course the Republicans in the House have done the right thing. We have all advocated to keep the government open. We have all voted repeatedly over and over to keep the government open. And it comes down to the necessity of 60 votes in the Senate. We only have 53 Republicans, and so we have to have a handful of Democrats who will wake up and do the right thing and stop inflicting pain on the American people so that they can score political points. I'll take your questions. Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hey.
I would like to know, do you think all those federal employees will receive the back pay if they keep their job? And then also, we saw in the Democrats' CR almost $500 million for PBS and NPR, $174,000 in death benefits to those 3 Democrat lawmakers' families who recently passed away, $437 million for the European Bank. Could you also comment on those 3 provisions too?
Yes, I mentioned in the counterproposal, the CR for the Democrats presented, it's $1.5 trillion, and if you go through it, and we have, and you analyze what it is they're requesting, it's a list of absurd priorities. They know that we could never do that and would never do it because it's wrong. For example, they want to give $500 million back to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. In the One Big Beautiful Bill, we eliminated that line. We don't believe that taxpayers should be funding biased news organizations and subsidizing their operations. That might have made sense 30 or 40 years ago. But you don't need that service anymore. Look how many media outlets are present in the room this morning. Media and information is ubiquitous. It's 24/7. It's live all the time, and it's on the internet. We don't need taxpayers funding that, and they were all left-leaning, biased organizations. We're not doing that again. And some of these other priorities that you mentioned, there are many that we could list that are just outrageous. It has nothing to do with the current proposal to keep the government in operation for 7 more weeks so that we continue the appropriations process. We're trying to fund the government, and you need Republicans and Democrats to work together to get that done. With regard to whether the furloughed civilian employees of the federal government will receive back pay, it is true that in previous shutdowns, many or most of them have been paid for the time that they were furloughed. But there is new legal analysis. I don't know the details. I just saw a headline this morning. I'm not read in on it, and I haven't spoken to the White House about it. But there are some legal analysts who are saying that that may not be appropriate or necessary in terms of the law requiring that back pay be provided. So I'm sure that'll be there will be a lot of discussion about that. But there are legal analysts who think that that is not something that government should do. That, if that is true, that should turn up the urgency and the necessity of the Democrats doing the right thing here. even more pain, more than I just listed for more people. So we got to figure it out. Back row, yes, sir.
Speaker, you've spoken repeatedly since the shutdown began about the impact on FEMA, the National Flood Insurance Program. Talk about how you're from a hurricane state. If this is a priority for you, why not bring the House back and vote on a reauthorization for NFIP or for WIC or troops pay or all those things for that matter?
Well, there's a lot of issues that we need to address, and we work on flood insurance, the flood insurance program all the time, those of us in hurricane states. But the work of the House has been done, and we have to get the Senate to reopen the government so that we can come back and handle all of these very important end-of-the-year issues. There's a lot of things on the table. FEMA has sufficient resources right now to do that. We do have to extend the flood insurance program, annually, effectively, to make sure that it's there, but we'll do that. We'll do it in due course. There's a lot of end-of-year issues that are being conflated with this very simple issue of keeping the government open. And that is the first and most immediate priority, and we must use every leverage point we have to force the Democrats to do that. And that's why we're handling the schedule the way we are. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thanks, sir. You've talked about Leader Schumer's record with regard to continuing resolutions. Your record, you voted against continuing resolutions in the past, including when Speaker McCarthy was the Speaker. How do you explain your stance now versus yours previously?
Yeah, different circumstances, different times. When we did CRs in the past, you had leverage points of things that when the Democrats were trying to put their partisan priorities in, we were trying to use whatever leverage we had in the minority to take them out. Very important distinction right now. We did not put in Republican priorities in the clean CR. I could have put some of our priorities or poison pills or things that Democrats had done in the past to us. We didn't. And that's why there's nothing to negotiate right now. People say, why aren't you negotiating? I don't have anything to offer. I can't go to a clean CR and say, let me pull off the Republican priority and make it more palatable for you, because we didn't add that in. It's simply a status quo continuance. One of the things we objected to back then was these were Biden-level policies and spending. I still object to that. But what I'm trying to do is keep the government open so that we can readjust those things. And as I gave you the long background yesterday, the summary of how we got to where we are, the appropriations process is working again. And we're going to be able to reprioritize federal spending, but we have to allow the time for that to continue, and we need 7 more weeks. But every day that they keep the government open, it gives us less time to finish the job.
McCarthy was the Speaker and you guys had a majority in 2023.
Yeah, well, we had divided government as well, right? The Democrats were, Chuck Schumer was over here negotiating in the Senate, and that's what's so ironic about it. When we were in the Oval Office, Chuck Schumer looked the president in the eyes and said, I've always been very fair. I've always allowed the Republicans their priorities. And I just looked at him like, oh, what? I'm sitting right here. I was the guy you were negotiating with. I called him at the 11th hour, I remember very vividly, and asked him not to put in a terrible poison pill that was a big Democrat priority that is outrageous to the conservatives. And he said, yeah, I'm sorry, Speaker, can't help you, and literally hung up on me, So now he wants me to be a fair broker. I have been. I gave him much more grace than he ever deserved. Yes, sir. Jake, sorry.
As a matter of principle on the back pay, I mean, understanding that there are people who have opinions about everything and analysis about everything, do you believe as a matter of principle that furloughed workers should receive back pay?
Yeah, I hope that the furloughed workers receive back pay, of course. We have some extraordinary Americans who serve the federal government. They serve valiantly, and they work hard, and they serve in these various agencies doing really important work. I can tell you the president believes that as well. He and I have talked about this personally. He doesn't want people to go without pay, and that's why he pleaded with Chuck Schumer to do the right thing and vote to keep the government open. We don't want this to happen. The key point, the important point to remember here is this can stop right now. They'll get another opportunity to change course and open the government. And then we'll have all these policy debates, as we always do. This, again, is a deliberative body. We've got 535 individuals serving here between the Senate and the House. We've got to have the time to do all the deliberation, but you got to have the lights on to do it, and that's the whole point. Yes, sir.
Some of your own members have expressed concern about the expiration of the ACA tax credits. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been the latest one. There are concerns that when they expire, premiums for millions of Americans would skyrocket. Why not begin negotiations on that issue right now?
because the government is closed. And as I mentioned, that's a December 31 issue. There are lots of conversations and deliberations and discussions right now, even bipartisan amongst members, about necessary changes that would have to be made, pretty dramatic changes, to even have that considered on the floor. But look, I'm not going to forecast the outcome of that. The whole point is you keep the government open, and then we have those discussions. We were always planning to have those discussions in the month of October. That's how the process works. And this is a very complicated issue. It's not a simple one. And you have, as I mentioned, there's probably 400 different ideas on the table of how to modify, change, or improve that if it is indeed going to be extended. And there's lots of concern all the way around. But there's no way that if 4 of us can go in a room and just snap our fingers and say, oh, here's the solution, let's get it done. We haven't had time to do that. And so we will, but we have to get the lights back on and get everybody here working again in their committees, through their processes, and on the floor in order to have fruitful conversations about that. So we hope that we'll do it. Yes, sir.
Congresswoman Green specifically said that Republicans do not have a plan to deal with health care.
Congresswoman Green does not serve on the committees of jurisdiction that deal with those specialized issues, and she's probably not read in on some of that because they've still been sort of in their silos of the people who specialize in those issues. When we get the conference back and when everybody's back together, we'll go through a lot of that. I mean, I've spoken personally to a number of members in the last 3 days, Republicans, from the most conservative member to the more moderate member, with their various ideas on that. There's a lot of work that's been done on that. It's implied as if this has been some sort of ignored issue. It's not that at all. Okay, but everybody's entitled to their opinion. I mean, not everyone knows everything. Congress is a very complex organization, operation, institution with lots of things going on in lots of different areas of committees of jurisdiction. And no one member has read in on everything that happens because that would be an impossible amount of information. Yeah, let me go front. Yes, sir.
President Trump yesterday expressed a willingness to work with Democrats on the health care issue. You say that's not going to happen so long as the government is shut down. Does that change your calculus that the president says that he wants to see some kind of a negotiation or discussion on this, even if the government is shut down?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw his truth after that was reported, but he made very clear that, yes, he's happy to sit down and talk with Democrats about health care or anything as soon as they reopen the government. And we are 100% consistent and united on that. I spoke to the president at length yesterday about that very thing. And yes, he wants to solve problems. The president is a deal maker. He likes to figure these things out and works towards solutions. And that's why he's a bold, strong leader that America needs right now. I'm excited to work with him on that. I have the exact same opinion and position. But again, none of this can happen until the Democrats stop inflicting pain on the American people and turn the lights back on in Congress and get everybody back to work. I certainly pray and hope that they will do that and they don't drag this on for political purposes. Thank you all so much.
Mr. Speaker, when will you swear in Ms. Grijalva?
That was House Speaker Mike Johnson on the Capitol Hill addressing the 7th day of the government shutdown. First, he addressed 5 key facts, which is, first, Senator Chuck Schumer's records show he used to not allow the government to shut down. Second, Senator Chuck Schumer's choice was based on politics, and the Democrats' records show they also continue resolutions to keep the government open, but they won't do it now. And fourth, the Democrats want to wish list $200 billion on Medicare. And fifth, continuing the government shutdown would plunge the U.S. GDP and increase unemployment with Americans. Finally, he addressed that President Trump is willing to work towards a resolution with Democrats so long the government opens up. Now we turn to Attorney General Pam Bondi on Capitol Hill. She's now addressing questions from senators. Let's tune into that now.
Investigation has been going on. This investigation was closed. Did you ask Alex Acosta that?
And Patel came to office, you said you would look into this. There were hundreds of suspicious activity reports. Some people would deduce from the fact that they are called suspicious activity reports that there might be suspicious activity. And yet you seem to have looked at 0 of those suspicious activity reports involving Jeffrey Epstein accounts. Let me ask you something else. There's been public reporting that Jeffrey Epstein showed people photos of President Trump with half-naked young women. Do you know if the FBI found those photographs in their search of Jeffrey Epstein's safe or premises or otherwise? Have you seen any such thing?
You know, Senator Whitehouse, you sit here and make salacious remarks, once again trying to slander President Trump left and right, when you're the one who was taking money from one of Epstein's closest confidants, I believe, I could be wrong, correct me, Reid Hoffman, who was with Jeffrey Epstein on multiple occasions. And the senator sitting right next to you tried to block the flight logs from being released. Yet you're grilling me on President Trump and some photograph with Epstein? Come on.
The question is, did the FBI find those photographs that have been discussed publicly by a witness who claimed Jeffrey Epstein showed them to him? You don't know anything about that? Okay. Here's what well, no, we cut to something else. The Marshal Service is supposed to protect our federal judges. I have asked repeatedly for the Marshal Service to let me know if they are investigating or being inhibited from investigating whether or not there is orchestration of threats against federal judges, whether under either conspiracy laws or racketeering enterprise laws or aiding and abetting laws, whatever. But as you know, there's the person who says the threat, and then there may very well be somebody orchestrating the threat behind them. Is the Marshal Service allowed to investigate orchestration of threats, and do you know if they've taken one step to do so?
May I answer the question, Chairman Grassley? The time has expired.
I think it's the convention of the committee that if I've started my question in my time, you may answer the question.
I was asking the chairman.
Okay, before I go to Cornyn.
She wants to answer the question, Chairman.
Oh, please go ahead. I thought you said you didn't want to answer it. I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry.
Thank you. Senator Whitehouse, I would be happy to sit down with you regarding any threat to any federal judge in this country. We take threats very seriously. I will set a meeting with you, with Director Serralta of the U.S. Marshals, and I will be there. And we will talk about any threats on federal judges.
Including
who
orchestration.
threatened them or who orchestrated them.
Bingo, thank you.
Okay. Before Cornyn speaks, I get kind of amused about my Democratic colleagues bringing up Treasury suspicious activity reports regarding Epstein. When Senator Johnson and I issued our Biden family reports in 2020, we used information from these very same type of documents. And you know what? We were criticized by our Democratic colleagues for doing so, and for years they ignored the evidence of the Biden family criminality. I don't think my colleagues can have it both ways. Senator Cornyn.
General Bondi, 6 out of 10 Americans say they live from paycheck to paycheck. And I'm sure that includes a lot of federal employees, Border Patrol, FBI agents, people who support them, frontline prosecutors. Do you find it somewhat inconsistent that our Democratic colleagues claim to support law enforcement and the rule of law, but yet they vote to deny those same individuals the pay which they've earned?
Yes, Senators, our law enforcement agencies, DEA, ATF, FBI, U.S. Marshals, and all the other federal agencies, Homeland Security, Treasury, all the agencies, all of my federal prosecutors, all of our employees are working tirelessly, national security, around the clock to keep this country safe and to keep this world safe. Yet, The Democrats voted to shut the government down, and they are out there working without a paycheck, with families at home, risking their lives every single day. Thank you for pointing that out, and thank you for caring, Senator Cornyn.
So let's get back to some basics. The Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land, is it not?
Yes, sir.
Applies to all Americans, the entire country. Federal law, likewise, applies to the entire nation, does it not?
Yes, Senator.
And so when federal law enforcement agents go to cities like Chicago to enforce federal law, they are acting within their authority, are they not?
Yes, Senator Cornyn.
So on what legal basis would a governor or a mayor say, we're going to deny or prevent a federal law enforcement agent from enforcing federal law? What would be the legal basis for them to do that?
You know, Senator, there's not one. And as I stated, there were 571 homicides in Chicago last year. And that's why right now Director Patel and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche are on their way to Chicago. I've been to Memphis. They're in Chicago right now to protect the people of Illinois. And what Senator Graham, the point he was trying to make earlier, was that when you don't cooperate with law enforcement, if I was a TDA member, if I was a Sinaloa cartel narco terrorist, you know where I'd go? Chicago, because they're not enforcing the law. And they're running their operations, as I stated earlier, two of the biggest terrorists, narco terrorists, we arrested right in Chicago because it was a safe haven for them. And they're operating these networks around our entire country. So we are going to keep our entire country safe. We're going to protect all Americans. If these senators aren't going to vote to open our government, to let these people, our people, work with paychecks, they're going to do it anyway, whether or not the locals are cooperating with them. We're going to be there protecting all Americans in this country, Senator Cornyn.
I find it, the comparison between the nation's, Washington, D.C., here in the nation's capital, where the mayor has welcomed the federal law enforcement agents, which as I travel around the city, are providing a level of deterrence against crime that I have not seen before. And Washington, D.C. happens to be one of the most dangerous metropolitan areas in the country. So seeing what the response has been by local officials here in Washington, D.C., seeing how the public here who visits here as tourists from Texas and elsewhere, how they're welcoming this federal law enforcement presence, it strikes me as a stark contrast between what we've seen in places like Chicago. And I just don't understand how elected officials who are sworn to uphold the law and the Constitution of the United States could take the position that, no, we don't want a safer community in our major cities that have a high level of crime like Chicago. Doesn't it strike you as bizarre?
Senator Cornyn, I don't understand it either, because we've been working hand in hand right here in D.C. with Mayor Bowser. She has been an incredible partner at making D.C. safe again. We've been working with her. We've been working with the police chief. We've been working with their staff, and the numbers speak for themselves. 3,156 arrests, 294 illegal guns seized. I think the number's probably higher today. Carjackings down 87%, violent crime down 45%. Right here in the nation's capital. I have been out there countless times before they go out on the streets, and I'm watching the DC Metro Police. I'm watching them with the Transit Authority Police, who of course keep our metros safe. I'm watching them with our DEA, FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals, Treasury agents, and HHS has even provided doctors out there to help the team. And what they are, they're a team, and they are working hand in hand. If you couldn't see their shirts on their insignia, you wouldn't know what agency they were with. I've truly never seen a partnership like that in my career, and it's working together, and that's what Illinois is refusing to do. And I wish these senators, I wish Senator Durbin would condemn the governor of Illinois and have him work with us like we're doing now in Memphis. We have the governor of Memphis. We have our 2 great U.S. senators in Memphis. We have the mayor of Memphis, the same, the chief, working hand in hand there.
Last week, maybe the week before last, I lose track of the days, we had the head of the Metropolitan Police Union for the District of Columbia here, and I asked him about violent crime in our communities. And I asked him whether there was a straight line from the open border policies of the Biden administration, which helped facilitate the cartels from exporting their poison to the United States, only to then find it distributed by criminal gangs who then engage in violence in our communities, like Chicago, to protect their territory and the profits that go along with that illegal drug trafficking. But I want to ask you about another aspect of the open border policies, and that has to do with one of the least reported tragedies and scandals associated with the Biden open border policies, and that has to do with the 500,000 children, sometimes called unaccompanied children, UACs, 500,000 children that the Biden administration allowed to be placed with sponsors in this country that were largely unvetted, and subjecting them to who knows what, and then abandoning them by taking the position that it's not the federal government's responsibility, it's local child protective agencies that have to follow up on these kids. So they couldn't tell you whether they were being trafficked, recruited into gangs, whether they were going to school, whether they were getting the health care that they need. They couldn't tell you because they didn't care. So I know that President Trump's administration, the Department of Justice in particular, has located 22,000 of these 500,000 children. Could you talk to us a little bit about your efforts to rescue these children that had been abandoned by the Biden administration?
Yes, and Senator, thank you for asking that question. President Trump cares deeply about our children of this country and children from around the world. This is horrific what has been happening in our country. Law enforcement has arrested approximately 458 sponsors. Now, what these sponsors are, they lie to ORR, many of them, to have an unaccompanied alien child. Some of them later exploit and abuse these children. They're not parents, they're not guardians. They're coming into this country, they were coming into this country without any ramification across the Mexican border until Donald Trump became president again, and that's when it stopped. We are doing everything in our power to find and arrest these people who are exploiting these children and find these children throughout our country. One of those cases, we charged a Guatemalan national unlawfully residing in Cleveland with lying to government because he became the sponsor of a young girl, and of course we found he was later sexually abusing her. That's one of many cases, Senator Cornyn, that I can talk about, and Donald Trump will not rest until all of these sponsors are found and these children are found and protected.
Thank you.
Senator Klobuchar, you're recognized.
Thank you. Attorney General Bondi, good morning. I'm going to start on a different subject.
Good morning.
On behalf of families in my state. And I wanted to thank the FBI and the local justice officials in Minnesota, the U.S. Attorney's Office, for the work that they did catching the murder, in the horrific murder of my friend, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and her husband, and the shooting of Senator John Hoffman. Just last month, my state was again shaken to its core when a mass shooter attacked Annunciation Catholic Church in Minnesota, shooting through the stained glass windows, injuring 21 people, including 18 kids, killing little Fletcher, little Harper, an 8 and a 10-year-old, murdering them when they're in mass praying, 12-year-olds protecting 8-year-olds. I know we've spoken about these tragedies, and we both agree that this kind of violence, whether in Minnesota or at a Mormon church in Michigan or the assassination of Charlie Kirk, has no place in our politics or in our democracy. In 2018, after the Parkland shooting, you were Attorney General, and there was a bill called the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act. And the bill banned bump stocks, enacted red flag laws, and raised the minimum age to purchase a firearm in Florida from 18 to 21. And you actually defended the law in court from a challenge from the NRA. And we know that I'm in favor of an assault weapon ban, period. I look at these bills and I think, does this hurt my Uncle Dick in the deer stand? We have a proud tradition of hunting in Minnesota. I don't think they do. But as I talked to Director Patel, and he told me in the chair you are sitting in right now, that assault weapon ban could prevent future attacks. I talked to him about better background checks, about red flag laws, and then that perhaps we could find common ground on what actually happened in Florida, which would be to at least change the minimum age for purchasing assault weapon, because we've got 18 to 20-year-olds commit gun homicides at over triple the rate of adults 21 years and over, even though that wouldn't helped in Annunciation Church because he was a few years older. She was a few years older. But as you know, the shooter at Parkland was 19 years old, and the shooters in Buffalo and Uvalde were both 18 years old. So given your efforts in Florida, do you agree that at least raising the age for purchasing assault weapons could reduce the number of these shootings?
Senator, first, that's pending litigation, and I can't discuss that at all. The 21 is pending litigation. I cannot discuss
In
that.
Florida?
But if I could go back
I really
the
didn't know
21
this.
age is pending litigation. I can't discuss that. But Senator, back to what you said about what happened in Minnesota, there is no place for that. And I believe I spoke to you after that horrific, those murders. And I'm so sorry that happened. And all of my federal agencies were partnering with state agencies, working hand in hand in Minnesota. What I can tell you about the Second Amendment is this is the most pro-Second Amendment DOJ in American history, as you know. But we want to keep guns, as you said, where they should be, in the hands of law-abiding American citizens, while keeping them out of the hands of criminals and gangs. Since January 20th, the ATF and FBI have seized more than 30,000 illegal guns.
I have 10 minutes.
30,000.
You have given these
Senator Klobuchar.
statistics, and I truly appreciate those statistics. But what I was just trying to get at was something where maybe we could find common ground on a bill that you actually defended in court in a state, which Director Patel seemed open to, and that was looking at, could we at least raise the age to 21 of the purchase of an assault weapon federally, while states look at banning these weapons overall, given these little babies that this gun is used to kill. So we can talk about it later, but that was my question, and you don't want to answer it.
No, it's pending litigation, Senator.
Okay, but your views on this is not pending litigation. So I want to get to the independence of the Justice Department. At your nomination hearing, I specifically asked you to provide assurance to every member of this committee that the Justice Department will only follow the facts and the law, and the White House will play no role in the cases investigated or brought. You stated in response, this was you, politics will not play a part in my decisions. And you also said the Justice Department must be independent and must act independently. Do you believe that you have upheld that commitment?
I absolutely have upheld that commitment, Senator. I pledged that I would end the weaponization also of the Justice Department, and that America would once again have a one-tier system of justice for all. And that is what we are doing in this country.
We saw this with the president directing an investigation prosecution of Chris Krebs, the former head of cybersecurity, Lisa Cook, who is a current governor of the Federal Reserve, Director Comey. And the president, and I know you have said that you will not discuss discussions you've had with the president about Comey. Is that correct? That you won't testify here about that? Because I was going to ask you if you received advice, instruction, or request from anyone at the White House to direct the department to engage in any investigations, prosecutorial actions, including decisions not to investigate or prosecute anyone.
I'm not going to discuss any conversations.
But then how about the Truth Social post on September 20th, 2025, in which the president said, "We can't delay any longer, Pam," using your name, "not bringing criminal charges are killing our reputation," his words, "and credibility." And then goes on to tell you to prosecute a member of this committee, to prosecute the Attorney General of New York, and to prosecute James Comey. Do you consider that a directive to the Justice Department?
Senator Klobuchar, President Trump is the most transparent president in American history, and I don't think he said anything that he hasn't said for years.
Okay, it has been reported that you initially pushed back against requests by senior Trump administration officials to push out or fire the acting U.S. Attorney in Virginia, Eric Siebert, who's a conservative Republican, who made the decision that the evidence was not there to prosecute Comey. What made you change your opinion?
I am not going to discuss personnel decisions.
Okay. Is it true that the career prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia found that there was insufficient evidence to bring criminal charges against former Director Comey?
I am not going to discuss pending cases because Comey was indicted in the Eastern District of Virginia by, I may point out, one of the most liberal grand juries in the country.
Okay, let's go on to other firings or terminations. Last week, the Justice Department fired at least 2 senior attorneys in the Eastern District of Virginia, including the office's national security chief, Michael Benary. It is reported that his firing came following criticism from a right-wing social media commentator who wrote, "One can only assume he was part of the internal resistance in the Comey indictment. In fact, he did not work on the Comey case. Instead, he was working on pursuing justice for service members killed in Afghanistan." How does firing a 20-year national security prosecutor enhance public safety?
Senator Klobuchar, I'm not going to discuss personnel decisions, but the personnel issue that I'm having right now is that all of my agents, all of my lawyers are working. My agents are on the street working without a paycheck because your party voted to shut down the federal government.
Unfortunately, the House isn't even back here. They're 18 days off the job to even meet with us to come up with a resolution that we would like to discuss with them about saving people's health care. Let's move on to the Antitrust Division. Did you authorize your chief of staff to overrule top officials in the Antitrust Division to settle the challenge to the Hewlett-Packard Enterprises Juniper Networks merger?
Senator Gail Slater runs my antitrust unit, and she is doing an excellent job on many, many cases. As you know, that is a pending case.
Okay.
In any merger, just to clarify, in any merger, Senator, there is a deal struck with our office and with the corporations involved, but then that also goes to a court to certify in any merger. In any merger, it's a multi-step process.
Okay, I
and
will
that
ask some
process
further
is still pending,
questions
Senator
about
Klobuchar.
antitrust. I just had one other thing. DOJ can now take the extraordinary step of
Time's
subpoenaing
expired.
journalists. Has the Justice Department issued any subpoenas to journalists under the updated guidance?
Time has expired.
Okay, I'll ask those on the record.
You may respond, Ms. Bondi.
You can respond.
That was live from Capitol Hill, where Attorney General Pam Bondi answered questions from senators. She responded to Cornyn by saying Memphis is working hard hand in hand with DOJ, and she wishes Chicago does the same as well to rid of their narco-terrorists and children traffickers. When questioned by Senator Klobuchar, she responded that the DOJ has been run independently and not weaponized politically. Next is the Federal Appeals Court will reconsider whether Louisiana's 10 Commandments classroom law violates the First Amendment. The measure, known as House Bill 71, required every public school classroom to display the 10 Commandments on the wall. In June, a panel of judges unanimously found the law plainly unconstitutional, citing a 1980 Supreme Court ruling that blocked a similar Kentucky law. Louisiana officials argue the Supreme Court has since narrowed that precedent and that the displays reflect Americans' founding principles. Attorney General Liz Murrell praised the court's decision to rehear the case. She had previously said she was willing to take it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. It's a term we hear a lot today, woke. What does it mean? What influence does it have? And where does it show up? To help us unpack all of this, we welcome Simon Hackison, a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation and the author of The 10 Woke Commandments. Simon, welcome. Please tell us what got you all started on writing this book.
Sure. Well, like a lot of people, I was locked down, locked at home for weeks on end during COVID. And it seemed like that was a time when a lot of the craziness that I would sum up as woke was emerging from college campuses and sort of, I don't want to say elite spaces, but let's say academic spaces into the regular world. Things like gender ideology, things like critical race theory. All of a sudden, we were being asked to accept things that everybody deep down knew were just not true. Like, America was more racist and white supremacist than any other country on earth, and it was worse today in 2020, or back then it was 2020, than it was in 1820 or 1920. And so I started researching, looking into some of these issues, particularly gender ideology and race theory, and realized that we were being fed a lot of nonsense from the legacy corporate media, and I just wanted to write a kind of short guidebook to help people navigate their way through these conversations.
How prevalent is this woke ideology within our society?
Well, it's everywhere. K through 12 education has been utterly compromised, public schools, by this ideology. We see, teachers in kindergartens trying to talk about transgenderism to young children. We see them teaching that American police are horribly racist and not treating citizens equally under the law. And then our academic institutions, right up through the universities, we've just seen in the last couple of years the level of anti-Semitism, anti-science, and the suppression of free speech, which a lot of college students consider completely acceptable, and certainly they didn't a generation or two ago. And then you have all of the professional associations like the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association, the Pediatric Association, accepting gender ideology, hook, line, and sinker, and concepts like health equity, which are just scientifically not sound and not backed up by evidence. So I would say it's pretty much everywhere, and certainly in our politics.
Also, you just said, so it's also in our workplace and in our school. And how do you suggest we respond to this?
Well, it's difficult because in the workplace, for example, if you are told to put your pronouns in your bio, and to when you're being recruited, if you have to give some sort of lecture of a diversity statement or sign some kind of pledge stating things that you know not to be true, it can be very difficult. And I understand why people have had to sort of hide their views sometimes if they're critical of all of these ideologies, or if they are genuinely religious and have convictions that prevent them from accepting some of these concepts. We've seen, a baker sued because he wouldn't bake a particular cake, and a woman sued because she wouldn't create a website for someone who that sent a message that she disagreed with politically. So, it's sometimes not possible to just be an outright rebel and say, I refuse. But I think parents, for example, should stand up and defend their children, their girls' rights to private spaces and to competing in sports against other girls. That's one start. And if they see lessons that are being taught to their kids that are just factually, historically not true, or that are politics and not history or geography or reading and writing, then they should speak up, join school boards, and get active.
You mentioned woke ideology taking hold of politics. So out of all these 10 commandments, which one is currently taking hold of American politics?
Well, I suppose Chapter 9 is called You Will Honor the State as Your Mother and Father. And that's where you see in communist China, in Stalinist Russia, in Hitler's Germany, in all authoritarian states, the government wants to take children from their parents. I don't mean always physically, but they want the children to tell on their parents if they say something that deviates from ideology. In the state of California now and other states, they want to be able to socially transition children from one sex to the other without telling their parents, to keep secrets from parents, which is absolutely anathema to the way Americans and all civilized nations raise their children. The parents, unless they are manifestly irresponsible, the parents have the right and the responsibility to raise their kids any way they want. And just another example of that, in some states, they want to supply free meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner to all children, regardless of income. Well, why is the state feeding children whose parents can perfectly well afford to feed them? Not necessarily poor children, but just all children. It's part of that taking away the responsibility of parenthood and putting it onto the state so that the state becomes the giver of all good things and the taker of taxes.
Simon, you just mentioned communist China, and in your book, The Woke Commandment 3, You Shall Reject Your History, it sure seems to parallel to the distorting of history we saw with Karl Marx's historical materialism.
Yes, I think, unfortunately, it's fortunate that most young people have grown up without any direct knowledge of what communism and fascism were like. But if you talk to anybody, Z Van Fleet wrote a good book about her childhood in China with the Cultural Revolution, and how many people died and how students were running around, capturing teachers and forcing them into these struggle sessions. Communist Cuba is only, 90 miles off the coast of Florida. North Korea is still a brutally repressive state. So they're still out there ruining people's lives. But for many young people in particular, regrettably, the voters in New York City are about to find out, socialism is just so far away historically that they don't understand it. So we really do need to teach that history so that they understand as much as possible just how bad life was under repressive communist regimes and still is.
Simon, if we take these 10 commandments and take it to the extreme, do you think it'll transform into something similar to socialism and eventually communism?
I guess intellectually, yes, that's the root of it all, is this Marxist concept of oppressors and oppressed, and that the ultimate goal is that the oppressors overthrow all forms of oppression, which are, racial, sexual, financial, overthrow capitalism, and they create this fantastic utopia. It's never happened. It never will happen. That's not the way human beings are designed. It's not the route to human flourishing. So that's why I titled the book, The 10 Woke Commandments You Must Not Obey, because we do need to start getting more vocal and resisting these commandments, which are taking us down a path to socialism. And that has never been America's path to prosperity and success and what has made us the greatest nation there is.
Simon Hackinson, great points and a great book. Thank you. For more information, and if you would also like to read this book, visit heritage.org. Now we return to Attorney General Pam Bondi on Capitol Hill. She is now answering questions from senators. Let's tune in.
Our federal agents' lives have been threatened. We spoke with Apple and Google to get the ICE Block app taken down. That was reckless and criminal in that people were posting where ICE officers lived. We worked with both Apple and Google to take that down.
It's stunning, I would add here, that it took as much work as it did by you to get them to take that down. Remember, in the days following January 6th, they took down all kinds of things, including a social media app called Parler, based on very thin evidence that was later largely rebutted, suggesting that people had been manipulating Parler in order to plan the January 6th attack. That wasn't true, and they took it down. I'm glad they have taken this Block ICE app down, but it's a shame that it took as long as it did, and as much work on your part to get them to take it down.
I will tell you they were cooperative, and to correct myself, it was where they were going, the jobs they were doing. And that's what's been happening, because hundreds of organized rioters, Senator Lee, are showing up where our ICE officers are. And as you know, they have fireworks, they have gas masks. You know, they don't want our officers to be protected with their identity, yet they're wearing gas masks, they're wearing goggles, and they're
So it's okay for them
cars.
to be safe. It's okay for Antifa to be safe. It's okay for those doing the bidding of international violent drug cartels to be safe. But heaven forbid, our ICE officers should be safe.
Thank you, Senator Lee.
Time has expired. Senator Coons, you're recognized.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn, and thank you to the committee for holding this oversight hearing. And Attorney General Bondi, thank you for your service and for being with us. I want to start with an area where I think we have a lot to agree on. In May, your Bureau of Prisons issued a directive to expand the availability of home confinement. The directive said it was rooted in the principle of smart, fair criminal justice reform, and explained that smart reform and public safety can go hand in hand, and that second chances are not just possible, they're necessary for a justice system worthy of the American people. There's more to do to implement this directive, but I appreciated the BOP's recognition of these principles. Could you briefly speak further about the work BOP Director Marshall and Deputy Director Smith, himself a former inmate, are doing with regard to reform, and what opportunities you see for us to do more?
Thank you, Senator Coons. And you have been a champion of that, and we believe in second chances. As a career prosecutor, I know that most people, even violent criminals, are going to be locked up and then they're going to be released. And that's why we need everyone to be a productive member of society. I believe in halfway houses, and that's part of what the First Step Act did. It gives people a second chance at life, and that's what Billy Marshall and Josh Smith have been doing, working hand in hand at the Bureau of Prisons. I talk to them constantly, and they are working so hard. In fact, they inherited a dysfunctional and neglected agency, and they are taking, despite more than $450 million being appropriated between 2019 and 2024, we found that funds had been diverted away from the Department of the Prisons, the Bureau of Prisons. And so they are doing everything to create more halfway houses and to give inmates everything they need to be successful upon release, but also by keeping America safe. And I just learned from Billy Marshall, we just made an incredible case that someone, I believe the case was in Texas, one of our federal prisons, no one was monitoring this. And there was someone who was caught with a drone dropping off recently cell phones,
Yep.
paraphernalia,
Let me follow up on that point, if I might, Attorney
many
General.
things that could cause violence within our prisons and allow criminal cartel networks to function within our federal prisons. And that's what a lot of this money is going for, to make our prisons safe within and so these criminals cannot function while they are in prison. But one good thing I can also add is we have given inmates, I think we've over doubled the amount of minutes they can have on their phones so they can talk to their family members, because we believe that is important.
One of the challenges federal probation officers face is massive caseloads. And I am about to introduce, hopefully reintroduce soon, a bill with Senator Lee that would improve our federal supervised release system by focusing resources on those who really need to be supervised and providing incentives to reduce oversight of those who've really made progress and who've changed the direction of their lives. It is broadly supported by law enforcement and a variety of policy groups, and I'd love to work with you on that, Madam Attorney General.
Yeah, Senator, can I just add, because I just got the the numbers. So what we have is $8.7 billion for the Bureau of Prisons. And what that does is it adds 587 correctional officers to help with the things that we just discussed. $95 million for new hires. We have to recruit and we have to retain. We know that's a really tough job to be a corrections officer. And that's why Josh Smith is such a valuable part of that team with Billy Marshall. And I would welcome working with you on that. And President Trump is the one who signed the First Step Act because he believes in second chances. We all do. Thank you, Senator Coons, for that question.
One of the things I have been concerned, even upset about, is how early in this administration, at the behest of DOJ, the department cut hundreds of grants totaling hundreds of millions of dollars, many of which serve critical public safety needs, supporting victims, assisting with reentry, violence prevention, including in my own home state. This was literally defunding the police. And I have some concerns about how DOJ is putting at risk public safety by assigning thousands of agents and prosecutors away from drugs, firearms, corruption, violent crime to help ICE arrest people without criminal records. You've indicated a willingness to review any grant that a member of Congress has concerns about and noted a number of them have been restored on appeal. And I appreciate that willingness to admit some misjudgments or mistakes in some of the many grants that were canceled. But can you assure us this process is going to be fixed going forward so better decisions are made at the start and not just after appeals? And can you assure us that we are not leaving doors wide open for crime and criminality in our communities and over-focusing on arrest and deportation of those without criminal records?
Yes, Senator, thank you for that question. And as I said earlier, we are reviewing all the grants, and I believe we have, turned some back on for senators who have called. It doesn't matter what state you're from. If it's a law enforcement grant, if it's protecting victims, let us know and we will work with you. And I'm not sure if we have done any in your state yet, but I would be happy to work with you on that. What I can tell you is there have been, out of the 5,800 discretionary grants that were reviewed, only 376 around the country, 7% were terminated. 225 of the grant recipients have appealed that termination. And so far, we've turned back on 18 of those. 17 appeals have been denied, and the rest are being actively reviewed. If any of you know of any of those that you believe should be turned back on, call me. We don't want to jeopardize anything that's hurting. Please do. And Senator, to go to what you said about the FBI and my federal agencies and being pulled to work on immigration cases, they're working hand in hand because we believe that, we have ICE officers out there, as we just discussed, I don't want to repeat that, who are being harmed. We're going to work with them, and I've directed all of my law enforcement agencies to work with ICE to make sure they're safe in Chicago, to make sure they're safe in Memphis, to make sure they're safe right here in Washington, D.C., but also at President Trump's direction. We are not stopping the core function of what we're doing, and that is fighting violent crime. And I think Director Patel made that very clear with all of the arrests that our FBI have been making on violent criminals. And there's so much that we can't talk about here, but if any of you are on the Intel Committee, we are fighting terrorists around this country every single day. Our lawyers are shut down right now. They're not getting paid, but crime is not stopping. They are working around the clock to not only keep our country safe, Senator, but to keep our world safe. And they
Madam
will
Attorney
continue
General,
to
I
do
think
that.
all of us hate that there's a shutdown and its impact on the federal workforce, and are working to find a way out of this shutdown, but one that will also restore cuts to health care. We could spend a lot of time on that, but let's focus on, if I could, two more questions related to your service as the Attorney General. The government's asserting the authority to summarily kill people. It says our cartel members through military strikes against boats on the open.
That was live from Capitol Hill, where Attorney General Pam Bondi answered questions from senators. She responded to a senator and she said that her department is working and their lawyers are working around the clock despite the government shutdown. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is now holding a press conference at the Capitol Hill. Let's tune in.
Murdered, and hundreds more were violently kidnapped and held captive in Gaza. Later on today, I'll meet with several hostages who thankfully were released, as well as the families of those whose loved ones were tragically killed in Gaza. 2 years later, it's incredibly important that every single hostage is returned and returned at the same time. It's important that we restore the ceasefire that Donald Trump inherited and that was broken in a matter of weeks during the Trump presidency. It's important that the devastation in Gaza end and that we surge humanitarian assistance into Gaza to provide relief to Palestinian civilians who for 2 years have been in harm's way in a theater of war through no fault of their own. And it's important that we find a just and lasting peace that can be implemented for the good of the people of Israel, our close ally, and for the good of the Palestinian people, so that we have Israel and the Palestinian people living side by side in peace, security, and prosperity. This is day 7 of the Trump shutdown of the federal government. And Democrats in the House and Democrats in the Senate continue to hold the line on behalf of the American people. Why? Because we're fighting to protect their health care in the midst of a crisis that has been inflicted upon them by Republicans from the very beginning of Donald Trump's presidency. Republicans have hurt everyday Americans in order to reward their billionaire donors. That's what the one big ugly bill was all about. Largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Stole food from the mouths of children, seniors, and hungry veterans in order to provide massive tax breaks, permanent in nature, to the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. Democrats have a very different approach to what we should be doing in order to make life better for the American people. And at this moment in time, that's addressing the Republican healthcare crisis that is devastating millions of people all across the country. And because of the Republicans' continued refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of Americans are about to experience dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles that will bankrupt them or deprive them of the health care that they need for themselves, their children, and their families. That's completely and totally unacceptable. And the government remains shut down right now because of the refusal and unwillingness by Donald Trump and Republicans to actually provide health care to working class Americans. That's an unacceptable position, and that's why Democrats continue to fight this fight on behalf of the American people. Whether they live in a blue state, a purple state, or a red state, this fight that Democrats are waging is on behalf of all Americans. Questions? Donald Trump and his administration have been torturing federal employees since the very beginning of his presidency, engaging in mass firings, harassing them, brutalizing them, laying people off without justification, and violating the law. So let me be clear to those hardworking federal employees who are now being victimized by this Trump Republican shutdown. We continue to stand with you. and will stand with you as we've done from the very beginning of this presidency. And the law is clear. Every single furloughed federal employee is entitled to back pay. Period. Full stop. The law is clear, and we will make sure that that law is followed.
That was the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries addressing the 7th day of the government shutdown. He called the, quote, big ugly bill as a source depriving Americans of health care, and he said this is unacceptable and why Democrats continue to fight for Americans. Finally, he promised for back pay for federal workers after the shutdown ends. Now we turn into Attorney General Pam Bondi again on Capitol Hill. She's also still answering questions from senators. Let's tune in.
Many of the details, we already know that this was ordered by the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, who reported directly to the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland. And we know that Jack Smith was on his witch hunt because he was directed to do so by the President of the United States, Joe Biden. Let's just remember, let's take a walk down memory lane. April 2nd, 2022, the New York Times. Garland faces growing pressure. The Times says as recently as late last year, that would have been 2021, Mr. Biden confided to his inner circle he believed former President Trump was a threat to democracy and should be prosecuted. It goes on to say that Biden was frustrated with Garland and wanted him to take decisive action against Trump. Here's what we're talking about. Trump, of course, was a private citizen at the time. So he appoints his own hitman, Jack Smith, who goes after the president, former president, who goes after members of this body. You know, the thing about it, though, that really strikes me is that it didn't stop with members of the United States Senate. Did it, Attorney General Bondi? It didn't stop here at all. I mean, just as egregious, maybe more so than tapping the phones of U.S. senators, is this memo that I know you've seen before. Let's just look at it again. This is an FBI memo from the same time period, I might add, from the same time period, in which the Federal Bureau of Investigation attempts to recruit informants into Catholic parishes in this country. So here you have an administration that is activating the FBI against its political opponents and tapping the phones of United States senators. Can I just say that again for my colleagues, for the benefit of my colleagues on the other side of the dais? Tapping the phones of United States senators. This isn't hypothetical. This isn't maybe what will you do in the future. This isn't, oh, gee, can you imagine a situation? This happened. This happened. And this happened, the targeting of Catholics in this country because Joe Biden and his FBI didn't like Catholics who went to a certain kind of mass. I mean, good God in heaven, what is happening to this country? What happened under Joe Biden? Or then how about this, the infamous school board memo, where Merrick Garland, at the direction of the White House, issued a memo activating the FBI's counterterrorism division against parents who attended school board meetings and had the temerity to ask what their kids were being taught. And some of those parents were treated like this. Let's just remember. Let's remember how parents were treated. Treated like this man. That's right. A parent at a school board meeting, I think in Virginia, who was drug out of the school board meeting. He's bloodied there, you can see it. And what was the response of Joe Biden's DOJ and FBI? It was to issue a memorandum saying that people like this ought to be investigated by the counterterrorism unit. And unbelievably, they were. They were. Or how about this? Let's remember Mark Houck and the pro-lifers who were prosecuted for what? For going to a clinic, an abortion clinic, and praying on a sidewalk outside the abortion clinic. This is Mark Houck and his beautiful family at Mass. This man, at the direction of Joe Biden's FBI, this man had an FBI SWAT team come to his door in the early morning hours with his beautiful children there, terrorizing them with weapons drawn. He was then arrested and prosecuted. Unfortunately, a jury acquitted him. This is what was happening under Joe Biden. United States senators spied upon. Former presidents, the political opponents of the president at the time, targeted, prosecuted. Pro-lifers, targeted, prosecuted. Catholics, targeted, prosecuted. 92 conservative organizations put under surveillance, targeted for potential prosecution. Gee, I don't know. Would you call that an example of weaponization, Attorney General Bondi? Do you think that's a fair characterization?
Senator Hawley, that is the ultimate weaponization. And weaponization under Donald Trump has ended. It has ended. Harmeet Dillon is running our civil rights unit, and she is doing an incredible job. No longer will parents be targeted. No longer will parents who care about whether their elementary school children have to read a transgender book be targeted and told they cannot have any say in their child's education. That has ended under this administration. People can worship freely, whether they're Catholics at synagogues or Muslims. Everyone can worship freely. That was the ultimate weaponization. They were targeting Catholics. No longer. They have been targeting so many American citizens throughout this country. And Senator Hawley, you have been a champion of this, and thank you for being a champion of that. But under Donald Trump's watch, it has ended.
You know, I think about some of the abuses of power in this country's history, and there's been sadly a lot of them by members of the executive branch over the years, whether it's Watergate, whether it's what J. Edgar Hoover did in his time at the FBI, spying on many public figures, RFK, MLK, JFK, you name it. And I just have to say, what we now know happened in the last 4 years under this administration surpasses all of that. It surpasses all of it, not just for the interference in the legislative branch, not just for the blatant disregard for the separation of powers, not just for the blatant disregard for the First Amendment, but for the targeting of ordinary American citizens who can't afford lawyers, who can't afford to mount a defense, who when the FBI knocks at their door or comes with the SWAT team, they don't know what to do. It is absolutely a disgrace. It is a stain on the history of this country and on the conscience of this country, what this administration did in the last 4 years. So here's what I think needs to happen. Madam Attorney General, I think we need a special prosecutor to be appointed whose sole responsibility will be to get to the bottom of what has happened in every instance that I have just named. I think we need to know exactly who approved the wiretaps on United States senators, who knew about it, what agents were involved at DOJ or the FBI. I think we need to know exactly who signed off on the Catholic memo, the spying memo, who was involved with it, how far did it go. I think we need to know exactly who authorized the prosecution of Mark Houck, who terrorized pro-lifers and tried to intimidate them. I think we need to know. And Mr. Chairman, this committee needs to do oversight hearings. We need to have thorough hearings into what has happened these last 4 years and this abuse that has now just been uncovered, because we have to ensure that it stops. As you just said, Attorney General Bondi, we have to ensure that it stops. This chapter in American history needs to come to a close, never to be opened again. The use of the most powerful law enforcement bodies in the world against ordinary citizens and political opponents must end once and for all. And we have a chance to do it, and it needs to be done with a thorough investigation, full transparency, and those who violated laws need to be prosecuted. I thank you for what you're doing, Attorney General Bondi. I hope that you will launch a thorough investigation. I hope you'll appoint a special prosecutor. Mr. Chairman, I hope we'll hold hearings. And with that, I yield.
Yeah. Before I call on Blumenthal, I want to, without objection, introduce into the record a document that General Bondi helped to declassify. The document is a Ray FBI analysis of Nellie Ohr's false statements to Congress. Or never suffered consequences for advancing this phony Trump Russian narrative and attempting to cover up her involvement in the hoax with false statements. Yet time and again, the American justice system has been weaponized against President Trump and his associates. And I've already talked about Peter Navarro in regard to that. The DOJ's inaction on Nellie Ohr's criminal referral, despite the obvious incriminating evidence provided in the FBI's own analysis, undermines public trust of the rule of law thanks to Director Wray's utter failure. Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just so the American people understand, this issue of weaponization of justice goes to the core of the integrity of our criminal justice system. And I think we can all agree that no individual, no group should be targeted simply because they are a political opponent or because the President of the United States has some personal animosity toward them. You've just said that President Trump is the most transparent president in history, tragically and chillingly. You may be right when it comes to criminal justice, because far from ending weaponization of justice, I would submit, Madam Attorney General, that President Trump has embodied it. And we have a record. It is a public record of his express instructions that certain individuals be investigated. The Attorney General of New York, Tish James, my colleague Adam Schiff, the former CISA director, Chris Krebs, the DHS former Chief of Staff, Miles Taylor. There's a list. And he has been transparent. In fact, 5 days before the indictment of James Comey, he put this post up as instructions to you. He didn't mince words. He was very open and public that you should indict James Comey and others because they are guilty as hell. No more delay now. 5 days before you indicted, or grand jury at your instructions indicted James Comey. I'd like to know from you what conversations you've had with President Trump about the indictment of James Comey.
Senator, I am not going to discuss any conversations I have or have not had with the President of the United
Did you
States.
see that
You're
post?
an attorney, you have a law degree, and you know that I'm not going to do that. I also find it fascinating, because I'll keep fighting to ensure that law enforcement and the judicial process move forward without political interference. No one is above the law, not even the president. That's a quote from you, Senator Blumenthal, in 2017.
Well, let me ask you then, when you saw that
No
post,
one is above the law. That was your quote.
When you saw that post, did you talk to anybody in the White House?
I am not going to discuss any conversations I have, nor any investigations,
So
nor
you are unwilling
any
to tell
pending
this committee
cases.
about conversations with the White House
And if I may
regarding James
continue,
Comey's indictment.
and if I may
Let me show
continue,
you a picture.
James Comey was indicted by one of the most liberal grand juries in the United States.
The night before James Comey's indictment, you had dinner with the President of the United States. Pretty intimate group.
Actually, there were a lot of people there that night. That's a great
Was James
picture.
Comey discussed at that dinner?
I love that picture. That's a great picture. And there were a lot of people there that night. I think the
Well-
entire cabinet was there.
Did you discuss James Comey with the President of the United States? He was sitting just to your left.
Well, 2 seats down, yes, 2 seats down. And I am not going to discuss any
I'm going to take
conversations
that
I've
as
had
a
or not
yes,
have with the
because
President
the
of the
American
United
public
States.
is entitled to know, Madam Attorney General.
The entire cabinet was at that dinner,
whether
too,
you took instructions from President Trump after he told you very directly to indict James Comey, which is weaponization of the Department of Justice. I want to agree with my colleague, Senator Hawley, that weaponization of our justice system must end. That's the reason that I propose legislation, and I challenge him and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to join me in legislation that would create a statutory right of action for people who are selectively or maliciously prosecuted for political reasons. It would codify your manual, the Department of Justice manual, on political prohibitions against political considerations in charging decisions, and prohibit the White House from intervening, President Trump and any other president from intervening in charging decisions. It would make reforms to the grand jury process. You've just said this grand jury was liberal. we should reform the grand jury process to ensure that the government is not abusing its power and authority, and it will require transparency and accountability reforms at DOJ so that you will and other attorneys general be held accountable for these kinds of decisions. Will you join me in supporting that kind of reform?
Senator Blumenthal, I find it so interesting that you didn't bring any of this up during President Biden's administration when he was doing everything to protect Hunter Biden, his son. And I think you just saw what Director Radcliffe just released.
You know, this is an effort to be positive.
If I can finish
and
answering the question, I'm not going to yell over you. I'm not going to get in the gutter with you. But information that the Biden administration told them not to investigate Hunter Biden's involvement with Ukraine. I'm not going to be lectured to you about integrity by someone who lied about being in the military just to be elected a senator.
The merger between Hewlett-Packard Enterprises and Juniper Network was settled. You authorized the settlement. It was the subject of a lawsuit to block it. The settlement produced virtually no concessions from Hewlett-Packard. It was a settlement that prompted criticism from the Antitrust Division. Did you authorize that settlement yourself?
As I stated earlier, Gail Slater is doing an incredible job running the antitrust unit. And as I stated earlier, that is still a pending matter. As you should know with a law degree,
did you not
that all mergers, if I can finish answering the question.
I'm going to,
if I could finish, no, I'm answering the question.
Because my time is limited.
No, well then don't ask me a question. So,
let me just ask you,
I said, you have a law degree. You know that not only are mergers agreed upon, but they have to go to a court of law to be approved. It's a multi-step process. And as I said earlier, that is still pending. And I have full faith in Gail Slater.
And Ms. Slater reportedly objected to the settlement.
Reportedly.
And moreover, two of her top officials were fired, Roger Alford and Bill Sinner. Did you authorize and direct those firings after they objected to the settlement?
I am not going to discuss personnel matters or pending litigation in my office.
Let me ask you about another merger. The merger involving two home health care agencies on favorable terms, likely to drive up costs for millions of Americans. The Transportation Department's rule to provide compensation to travelers impacted by airline-caused flight delays, which was canceled. The merger of Skydance and Paramount, after Paramount's ownership took a number of steps favorable to the president. These kinds of mergers belie the claims that President Trump himself has made, that this administration will stop big corporate mergers that ultimately benefit the owners of those corporations rather than consumers or ordinary, everyday Americans.
Senator,
let me ask you about
you just listed, you just gave a list of many mergers.
I have a question for you.
Can you talk to me about the issue with these mergers?
I do have a question. In the merger that took place.
Which merger? You've listed many.
Involving American Express GBT. I understand that Brian Ballard, longtime backer and head of the law firm where you worked, was instrumental in lobbying the Justice Department to drop that lawsuit. It was dismissed, so it's not subject to a court review. What conversation did you have with Mr. Ballard?
Senator Blumenthal, I cannot believe that you would accuse me of impropriety when you lied about your military service.
I am
you
not
lied.
asking
You
you.
admitted you
I am
lied
not
to be
accusing you
elected
of
a U.S. senator.
impropriety. I'm
You
asking
lied.
you
How
about
dare you? I'm a career prosecutor.
with Mr.
Don't you
Ballard,
ever challenge my integrity.
had
I have
apparently-
abided by every ethics standard. Do not question my ability to be fair and impartial as Attorney General and anything
You'll
with
answer that
my
question to
former
another of my
firm,
colleagues.
Ballard Partners.
Thank you.
Senator Lee has asked for the chair.
Yeah, just wanted to note for the record, the Paramount merger that he referenced was not within the Department of Justice's ambit. That was at the FCC, not the Department of Justice. Attorney General Bondi would have had nothing to do with that. Thanks.
And that was why I asked Senator Lee. He didn't know that. He was reading off a script.
Before I call on Senator Kennedy, it's kind of laughable about my Democrats friends expressing fear and concern at the Justice Department's recent attempts at holding parties responsible for their actions. I can only ask, where have they been in the last few years? They had no problem watching the Biden administration, its White House, use all of its might and power to attack Trump and associates. And now even Republican senators have been selected to have their telephone records made public, or not public, but well, I guess they're public now. But Biden weaponized our institutions and didn't hear a peep from the other side. Now every investigation and prosecution under this administration, people are going to be held accountable for their actions. Senator Kennedy, or
I want extra time, Mr. Chairman.
okay.
I mean, this is, enough is enough.
Cruz was next, but he wasn't here.
Senator Cruz was next.
Okay, Senator Cruz, if you're ready, go ahead.
Well, thank you, but I will welcome Senator Kennedy providing color commentary throughout my question.
I will be happy to. If we ever finish this hearing this year.
And I'll point out Senator Kennedy has a new book about testing negative for stupid, so I hope I test negative for stupid. I hope I meet the threshold of
You
your
do
book
meet
title.
it, and I talk in the book about the tattoo of the Backstreet Boys on your back.
Look, I can't help that you don't want to reach young people. I think young people are the future, damn it, and I'll do whatever steps are needed.
Backstreet Boys?
That would be on Vice President Vance's playlist, I heard, that got hacked.
General Bondi, welcome. I apologize for injecting you in the middle of Senator Kennedy's antics. We can't help him. Thank you for the job you're doing. You are doing a tremendous job keeping this country safe. And our families are safer because you are on that wall. Our families are safer because you are returning the Department of Justice to its core function, which is enforcing the law and locking up bad guys. We saw for 4 years, under the Biden administration, we saw the Department of Justice politicized and weaponized, and we saw them refuse to do their core function. More than 12 million illegal aliens flooded into this country, and the Biden Justice Department seemed to think its job was letting murderers and gangbangers and rapists go. And the results in just a few months that you've been able to produce are tremendous. Arrests of violent criminals are up 125% since the Biden administration. Fentanyl trafficking prosecutions have risen 42% since fiscal year 2023. DOJ has coordinated with DHS to remove over 220,000 criminal illegal aliens this year alone. Under your leadership as Attorney General, you have helped rescue 4,000 children from predators and helped arrest 1,300 child predators and 285 human traffickers. In my home state of Texas, Operation Soteria Shield resulted in the rescue of 109 children. Thank you, Attorney General Bondi. Texans are safer because you are serving. Americans are safer because you are serving. You have a big task cleaning up the messes of the Biden DOJ. One of the most egregious failures of the Biden Justice Department was its refusal to protect judges and Supreme Court justices. As you know, in May of 2022, an unknown individual leaked to Politico the draft of the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, the opinion that finally overturned Roe versus Wade. That leak was a crime. It was a theft of government property under 18 U.S.C. Section 641, and it was an unauthorized disclosure of confidential information under 18 U.S.C. Section 1905. General Bondi, do you agree that leaking that opinion was a criminal act?
Senator, I can't discuss anything regarding that matter. That should answer your question.
Well, I will say this. The leak occurred in 2022. So the 5-year statute of limitations has not expired. And I'm going to ask you, if it is not happening already, to direct the FBI to investigate and find the leaker. The leaker has not been exposed. The leaker has not been identified. And the FBI has far greater investigatory tools at its disposal than does the Marshal Service. And when it comes to defending the rule of law, when it comes to the integrity of our court system, having partisan law clerks, and I believe in all likelihood it is a law clerk who leaked it, leaking opinions designed to try to pressure the court politically is a gross subversion of the integrity of the court. And so I would ask you as Attorney General to direct the FBI to use every resource possible to investigate, to find the leaker, and when you identify the leaker, to prosecute the leaker for that criminal conduct.
Thank you, Senator Cruz.
All right, I want to turn, secondly, after that decision was leaked. I believe the leak was part of a broader effort to intimidate and to threaten and harass justices into trying to get them to change their decision. And we saw mobs assemble outside the homes of multiple justices. Do you agree, General, that the mobs that came outside the homes of justices were there to intimidate the court and to try to influence the justice's decision?
100%.
Well, as you know, federal law, in particular 18 U.S.C. Section 1507, makes it a crime to picket or parade outside a judge's home, quote, with the intent of influencing that judge's decision. That statute is crystal clear. And I will point out, these protests happened in 2022. So just like the leak, the 5-year statute of limitations has not expired on these protests. But unfortunately, the Biden Department of Justice didn't give a damn about prosecuting this statute because President Biden and Merrick Garland and the political hacks at DOJ disagreed with the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs and were perfectly fine turning a blind eye to violent protesters threatening the justices and their children. You may recall I questioned Attorney General Garland about this statute, and he admitted under oath that not a single protester had been prosecuted. And he blamed the Marshal Service. He said the problem was the marshals, quote, didn't make arrests. Well, subsequent documents told a different story. Internal training materials obtained reveals that the marshals were explicitly instructed not to arrest protesters under Section 1507. So the reason there was no arrest is because a political decision was made that we like what the protesters are protesting for, and we, the Department of Justice, are not going to protect the safety of justices. We're going to allow them to be victims of an intimidation and threatening campaign. Just as I asked you with regard to the Dobbs opinion, I would ask you to direct the FBI to review the footage of these protests, to review the evidence that exists in terms of who engaged in it, and will you commit that anyone who you can prove violated 18 U.S.C. Section 1507 will face consequences and face prosecution?
Senator, we currently have 63 ongoing investigations involving judges and officials throughout this country. That scene that you're showing will not happen under my watch. It will not happen under Donald Trump's presidency. It doesn't matter if you're a liberal judge or a conservative judge or justice. That will not happen.
Amen. And that point that General Bondi made is very important. I would be equally outraged if you had nuts in front of the liberal justices. I'd say arrest them and throw them in jail. Violence is unacceptable, regardless of whether I agree or disagree with your politics. And violence, particularly fueled by rhetoric by irresponsible politicians, violence can result. And tragically, it resulted in one deranged individual traveling from California to Maryland with the intention of murdering Justice Brett Kavanaugh. As you know well, this deranged individual was arrested outside the justice's house. He was arrested with a kill kit. He was arrested with a gun, with handcuffs, with duct tape, with zip ties, and with the intention of murdering Justice Kavanaugh, very possibly murdering Justice Kavanaugh's wife and two daughters, and potentially murdering two other Supreme Court justices.
Senator Ronald.
As you know, just this week, a left-wing Biden-appointed judge sentenced this attempted murderer, this attempted assassin, to just 8 years. The Department of Justice asked for 30 years.
That's right.
And that judge downward departed by 22 years. Why? Because this left-wing judge said that the attempted murderer was transgender. And because he identifies as transgender, apparently it's okay to try to kill a Supreme Court justice if your politics are sufficiently woke. Now, I know you have said the Department of Justice is going to appeal, and you absolutely should. I called this week, I believe this judge should be impeached because the judge has demonstrated she is completely unfit to be a federal judge. And what is your view of the justice of this sentence of just 8 years for the attempted murder of a Supreme Court justice?
I was speaking with our prosecutor, Ms. Mal, who did an incredible job on this case. She did an incredible job. And yet, this judge gave 8 years. And the judge also would not refer to the defendant by his biological name, referred to him by the pronouns, and was concerned about the treatment that this individual would get regarding a sex change while in prison. And we are appealing that sentence. I immediately said we are appealing that sentence.
Thank you.
But my prosecutors did an incredible job on that case.
And the judge wanted to put him in a women's prison.
Before Senator.
Not going to happen, excuse me, I'm sorry, Chairman. That's not going to happen in the Bureau of Prisons now.
Before Senator Ronald, without objection, I'd like to introduce 3 FBI 1023 forms into the record. The first 1023 form I made public last Congress. This is the one that Director Patel said his predecessors did fully investigate. The second and third 1023 forms relate to the first in that they reference potential Biden family criminal conduct. Senator Johnson and I made these 2 public, and we simply want to know whether the government has investigated what it found, and if not, why not? Senator Ronald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bondi, FISA Section 702 will expire in 6 months. In response to my questions for the record, at your confirmation hearing, you said you did not have experience with FISA, but if confirmed, you would consult with experts at DOJ. Now, you've had that opportunity. Do you support adding additional safeguards for searching Americans' communications in the 702 database?
Senator, Section 702 is a vital source of foreign intelligence and instrumental in keeping Americans safe. We also take individuals' rights of Americans, their individual rights of all Americans, very seriously. And many statutory reforms to FISA have incorporate safeguards. They have to incorporate safeguards to protect our civil liberties. The Department of Justice looks forward to working with you to discuss anything regarding 702.
Appreciate
I believe
that.
my staff, and Senator, I also want to thank you for this hearing. Your staff met with my staff, and I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you. We're going to be working on 702, so I appreciate the openness to further amending 702. At your confirmation hearing, you assured me that it is the Department of Justice's decision to determine what cases will be prosecuted. Last month, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was forced out. President Trump then posted the message behind me asking about prosecuting James Comey. You then appointed a new U.S. attorney who within days secured an indictment against James Comey. That social media post behind me saying, "What about Comey?" was directed to Pam. Are you the Pam that the president was referring to?
I'm sure I was.
So it's very clear to me that when the president posts something like that, that he considers the DOJ to be his law firm and you his lawyer. And in fact, very shortly after the post to you, Comey gets indicted. Last year, President Trump's new border czar, Tom Homan, was videotaped taking a bag with $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents after suggesting he could help with government contracts. Sounds like a bribe. 2 weeks ago, DOJ officials reportedly shut down the bribery investigation into Mr. Homan. Ms. Bondi, did you approve closing the Homan investigation, bribery investigation?
Senator Hirono, as I stated earlier, the Department of Justice and the FBI conducted a thorough review, and they found no credible evidence of any wrongdoing. You were also on video outside the White House protesting with a group called CASA, where Antifa members were. Does that mean you're a member of Antifa?
You know, I simply asked the question as to whether or not you approve the shutting down of the investigation, Mr. Homan. I have to assume that you did because the FBI it reports to you. But the American people would look at the situation where this person is taking a $50,000 in cash, no less, and you testified today that a thorough investigation was done. Now, I have to assume, I conclude, that since no wrongdoing was determined, that in answer to Senator Whitehouse's question, he kept the money. He kept the money, and I hope that he put that on his tax returns as income. Next question. Over 1,200 rioters were convicted of charges related to January 6th. President Trump has since pardoned nearly all of them. As if that weren't enough, last month there were reports that a lawyer for the January 6 rioters met with senior DOJ officials about setting up a compensation fund like the one that Congress set up after 9/11 to compensate these rioters. Ms. Bondi, is anyone at DOJ considering setting up a compensation fund for January 6 rioters? Yes or no?
Senator, I have had no meetings or discussions about a fund.
So would you support such a fund? Would you okay such a fund?
Senator, you can send me the information on the fund, and I'd be happy to look at it.
No, but do you think that's a good idea this is what I'm getting at. Because to actually set up a fund and to have people talking with your senior people at DOJ, political people, about creating a fund, and you won't let us know what you think about that, that's pretty unbelievable. On January 30th of this year, the Trump DOJ's Antitrust Division sued to block the merger of two tech companies. Then, well-connected lobbyists met with your political deputies who overruled the career staff and approve the merger. So there's a settlement on that. And separately, DOJ sued Ticketmaster last year for monopolizing concert tickets and forcing consumers to pay outrageous fees. Ticketmaster has hired the exact same lobbyists who met with senior DOJ political people regarding the merger of the two tech companies. So my question is, Ms. Bondi, have lobbyists met with your political deputies about the Ticketmaster case?
Senator Hirono, as I stated earlier, I am not going to discuss anything that is ongoing. Gail Slater runs the antitrust
I would
office,
say
and Gail
that-
Slater, if I can finish, Gail Slater is doing an incredible job running my antitrust unit.
It's highly likely, Ms. Bondi, that the same lobbyists who met with your people basically got rid of the antitrust case.
Senator, I don't think a lot of people
I
like
would
that
say
you were out
they're probably
protesting with
meeting you
Antifa.
right now. Next question. You have fired dozens of career prosecutors because they worked on cases involving President Trump or January 6 rioters. For example, one career federal prosecutor who secured over 100 convictions in Florida. He also spent time in D.C. prosecuting January 6 cases. He received an outstanding review only 2 days before you signed a memo firing him. The memo.
We're moving from lawmakers questioning Pam Bondi on the DOJ actions and going to where Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has arrived to the White House for a meeting with President Trump. Let's tune in.
President Trump, sir, your message to Israel on the second anniversary of the Hamas attack. Thank you very much. You talked about ending the trade war.
That was Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney being welcomed by President Trump to the White House. And that's all for this hour. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For around-the-clock original news coverage, watch us live at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. We'll cover more stories right after this break.
That truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. Shen Yun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough. But Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.
Did you know Mathis Home has been giving their customers the best styles and value for 65 years? Come celebrate with 65th anniversary savings on everything in the store. This set is a great deal. You get the modern trestle table with 4 comfy side chairs, the complete set for just $8.89. With over 100 dining sets in stock, you're sure to find the one just right for your family and get free delivery. Get your new dining room now with 65th anniversary savings at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. On the second anniversary of the October 7th attacks in Israel, mediators are working to implement President Trump's peace plan for the Gaza Strip. The status of the negotiations and how likely it is the fighting could come to an end. And it's also day 7 of the government shutdown today. Staffing shortages at airports are causing delays. And President Trump says he's talking to Democrats about health care. We have the latest there. Attorney General Pam Bondi, meanwhile, clashes with senators on the deployment of the National Guard to Chicago, the Epstein files, and past conduct by the Biden administration. We tune in to the hearing and her testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee. U.S.-based scientists win the Nobel Prize in Physics, honored for experiments that revealed quantum mechanics in action.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today is Tuesday, October 7th. I'm Stephanie Cox. Mediators are working to implement President Trump's peace plan for the Gaza Strip. Qatar's foreign ministry says many details still have to be worked out, but that all parties involved want to stick with Trump's plan.
All parties have agreed to this plan, so there are no obstacles now in terms of agreeing to the 20 points contained in President Trump's plan. The obstacles now are in implementation.
The spokesperson added that Qatar is neither optimistic nor pessimistic about the outcome of the negotiations so far. A spokesperson for Hamas says the terrorist group is also committed to Trump's plan so the fighting in Gaza can stop. Germany's foreign minister confirmed that he sees willingness on all sides to implement the points outlined by the president. The German minister is among the officials in Egypt today working out the details of the possible ceasefire. Trump's plan is widely seen as the most promising yet for ending the Israel-Hamas war, which started exactly 2 years ago. Thousands are coming together across southern Israel to honor the memory of loved ones killed by Hamas on October 7th, 2023. The terror attack left more than 1,000 people dead, including hundreds who were attending a music festival. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on how family members are coping with the attack 2 years later.
At the site of the Nova Music Festival, relatives and friends take in hundreds of photos of their loved ones. Yehuda Ramani visits every morning. He thinks about his daughter Sharon, a police officer killed at the event.
We live this day by day, unaware of what happened. That's what hurts us the most.
We have no idea what happened, and all this time we've been looking for information about what happened that day, and we still don't to this day.
Negotiations for a potential ceasefire between Israel and Hamas are underway in Egypt. But for Romani, a peace agreement would come too late.
What will it give me? What will it give me? My daughter? I've already paid my price. If there will be a ceasefire or there will not be a ceasefire. What does it matter that the terrorists sit in detention cells and get good food and thick mattresses, and we sit here and cry here every day instead of giving us answers?
Nova Festival attendee Alon Musnikov says revisiting the site doesn't mean much to him. His memory of the attack remains.
Specifically, being here is not too moving for me, because you live it every day it comes to your mind at least once. The fact that we are here specifically, yes, is a little unsettling, but not significantly.
Hamas's October 7th, 2023 attack killed 1,200 people. Gaza's Hamas-controlled health ministry says the ensuing war has killed over 67,000 Palestinians. The ministry does not distinguish between civilians and Hamas terrorists. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And now looking at 2 years since the terrorist attacks in Israel. Now, since President Trump returned to office, he's been working to bring peace to the Middle East. Here's a look back at the efforts so far.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
Much has changed in the Middle East since President Trump was inaugurated for the second time in January. One of the administration's goals has been to stop the fighting between Israel and Hamas terrorists, as was highlighted during Trump's inauguration.
Pray that the next 4 years brings peace to Israel and throughout the Middle East.
People in Gaza were cheerful a day before Trump returned to office, as Israel and Hamas had agreed to a ceasefire. Many Trump supporters at the time said Hamas accepted the truce due to Trump's anticipated return and his strong stance on the Gaza conflict. In early February, Hamas released 3 hostages in a highly televised event. Israel later released Palestinian prisoners. The swaps are part of the ceasefire agreements between the two sides. Many criticized the early hostage releases by Hamas, saying they were not safe as the captives were surrounded and swarmed by thousands of people, many of them armed. Israel also withdrew from the Netzarim corridor in Gaza. This allowed thousands of displaced Palestinians to move back to the northern part of the Gaza Strip. But the ceasefire ended after 2 months, on March 18th, after Israel hit targets in the Palestinian enclave. The Israeli military said the strikes were necessary due to reorganization by Hamas, which would have ended up hurting Israel. As spring progressed, the Iranian regime got involved more and more in the fighting against Israel. The Jewish state retaliated, striking military targets in Tehran, which forced some Iranian civilians to flee the city. The escalations led to the U.S. sending stealth bombers to Iran, striking 3 nuclear sites in late June.
And President Donald Trump is now holding a meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney in the Oval Office. Let's tune in for what they have to say.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's an honor to have the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, who I have made very popular. He's an extremely popular Prime Minister, and I'm very honored to do it because I liked him right from the beginning. I've liked him, and we've had a good relationship. That showed up, that was a beautiful job you did, and I appreciate it very much. We're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We'll certainly be talking about Gaza. We're in very serious negotiations to, I guess you could say, depending on the way you count, 3,000 years. You could say 500 years. You could say, but that it's been raging for a long time. And I think there's a possibility that we could have peace in the Middle East. It's something even beyond the Gaza situation. We want a release of the hostages immediately, etc. And so our team is over there now. Another team just left, and other countries, literally every country in the world has supported the plan. Yep. I don't think there's anybody that hasn't, actually, not that I've seen. But there's a real chance that we could do something, so you may have some questions on that later. But in the meantime, we'll spend some time and we'll make some deals and we'll do some things that are good for both of our countries. And Mark, it's an honor to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I may, you kindly hosted me and some of my colleagues a few months ago, and I said at the time, you are a transformative president. And since then, the transformation in the economy, unprecedented commitments of NATO partners to defense spending, peace from India, Pakistan through to Azerbaijan, Armenia, disabling Iran as a force of terror, and now, and I'm running out of time, but this is in many respects the most important.
The
what
merger
you created
of Canada
no,
and the
what
United
you have
States.
created.
I'm only kidding.
That wasn't where I was going. On this solemn day of commemoration of the horrific attacks of October 7th, for the first time in decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years, solemn day of commemoration of the horrific attacks of October 7th, for the first time in decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years, this prospect of peace that you've made possible. Canada stands foursquare behind those efforts, and we'll do whatever we can to support
Very
that.
nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark, very much. Any questions?
What would it take for you to drop or lower your tariffs on Canadian sectors, including aluminum and steel?
Well, we're going to be talking about that with the Prime Minister. We'll be talking about tariffs. We'll be talking about a lot of that, but that's for a little bit later on. I want to just acknowledge our great ambassador. Is he doing a good job?
He's doing a good job.
Otherwise, I'll get him out of there so fast. No, you have a
Is it the White House's position that furloughed workers should be paid for their back pay?
I would say it depends on who we're talking about. I can tell you this, the Democrats have put a lot of people in great risk and jeopardy, but it really depends on who you're talking about. But for the most part, we're going to take care of our people. There are some people that really don't deserve to be taken care of, and we'll take care of them in a different way. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. President, in your opinion, why has Canada and the United States failed to reach an agreement up until now?
Well, it's a complicated agreement, more complicated maybe than any other agreement we have on trade, because, we have natural conflict. We also have mutual love. We have great love for each other. I love this. I love Canada and the people of Canada. And Mark feels the same way about here. The problem we have is that they want a car company and I want a car company, meaning the U.S. wants a car company. And they want steel and we want steel. And, so in other countries, they're very far away. And there's no problem. You can compete and you can do. We don't like to compete because we sort of hurt each other when we compete. And so we have a natural conflict. It's a natural business conflict. Nothing wrong with it. And I think we've come a long way over the last few months, actually, in terms of that relationship. So when it comes to trade, the United States was always giving everything. They gave everything to Canada. They would let car companies leave here and go to Canada. But that hurts the United States. And, other presidents didn't see that. They weren't business-oriented. They might have been good politicians in some cases, not in all cases. They were bad at both. But it's a very natural conflict, and it's something that we're working on.
Canada has offered a lot of compromise this summer. Are you willing today to offer some compromise to Canada, maybe on steel, on aluminum?
Well, we've made compromise, and we've made some compromise even on steel. But, we have the same basic authority and the same basic, this could be also a little bit of a conflict with other countries all over the world on steel, because we want to make our own steel. We don't want to bring steel in for the most part, but we will bring it in, and we do bring it in. We continue to bring it in from Canada, but there is a tariff to pay. And I think that would be a normal thing to say, but we've come a long way. I think, Howard, we can truly say. Do you want to make a comment on that?
Well, I think the opportunity to work together, but as you said, there's conflict. Why do we make cars in Canada? You've called that out, and you've addressed that. So there are places we should work together, and there are places that we have natural conflict.
It's a tough situation because we want to make our cars here. At the same time, we want Canada to do well making cars. So we're working on formulas, and I think we'll get there.
Canadians are
tariffs. The numbers are down like 23% in the first 7 months of the year. What do you say to Canadians that don't want to go to the U.S. now because of your 50-foot state talk, because of the trade war, the tariffs?
Yeah.
And
Well,
the fear
I
of
understand
also
it. Look, I
being
understand that, and Americans don't want to buy cars that are made in Canada. You know, I mean, we have the same conflict. So there isn't. It's something that will get worked out. There's still great love between the two countries, but you know, American people want product here. They want to make it here. Detroit was emptied out and moved to Canada, moved to Mexico, moved to other places, not just Canada. And now they're all moving back, you know, they're moving back. We have, right now, I was just telling Mark, we have 17 trillion, but it's really much higher. That was as of a couple of months ago. We have over $17 trillion being invested now in the United States. As an example, Biden, he was the worst president we've ever had, but they had less than 1 trillion in 4 years. We have more than 17 trillion in 8 months. 8 months. And I think that number is going to be $21, $22 trillion. There's never been anything like that in the history of the world for any country, not even close. You know, if you did 1 trillion in a year, that's pretty good. We're going to do over 20. And it's coming in with AI. It's coming in with auto plants. You know, we're building auto plants, a lot of auto plants in the U.S. It's coming in for a lot of reasons. It's coming in because of the fact, I think the November 5th election was a big factor, and I think the tariffs are a big factor. And again, we want Canada to do great, but you know, there's a point at which we also want the same business. We're competing for the same business. That's the problem. That's why I keep mentioning one way to solve that problem is a very easy way. But we're competing for the same business. He wants to make cars, we want to make cars, and we're in competition. And the advantage we have is we have this massive market. So it's it's quite an advantage.
And that would be, a very long-standing law that's been on the books.
Yeah, well, it's been invoked before, as you know. If you look at Chicago, Chicago's a great city where there's a lot of crime. And if the governor can't do the job, we'll do the job. It's all very simple. They probably had 50 murders in Chicago over the last 5, 6, 7 months. Many people were shot. And then the governor gets up and he says, well, we can handle it. They can't handle it. They don't know what they're doing. The mayor is grossly incompetent. He's at a 4% approval rating in Chicago. He's at a 4%, lowest approval rating, lower than even de Blasio had, which is hard to believe in New York. I thought de Blasio would always maintain that record, but the Chicago guy is even lower. So I think that we want safe cities. If you look at D.C., you would right now, Mark, you could go out, take your family out to dinner. You could walk right down the middle of the street. There is no crime in D.C. When I got here, this place was a raging hellhole where people would come from Canada, people would come from other places and end up getting shot. Nobody's being shot. The National Guard's been unbelievable. I mean, they are strong, tough guys. You know, we won something at the Supreme Court, which is a big deal, merit. Everything now in this country is merit-based. I didn't think I'd ever see it again. And we have our soldiers are merit-based, too. And they're central casting. And they walk through that town, and I'll tell you what, this place is safe. It's beautiful. Now we're in Memphis, and the same thing's happening. You're getting the reports. The bad guys are saying, we don't want anything to do with this. And we're removing many people. In D.C., we took out 1,700 career criminals and sent them back to the countries from which they came, mostly led out by Biden and his people that had an open border policy. And, you know, Canada, you suffered because of that, too, because they'd come here and they'd go into Canada also. So we're like a buffer for that in terms of Canada suffered greatly by Biden and the open border, the policy of open border, totally unchecked, totally unvetted. And these people were, you know, if you got 5%, 2%, now you were getting a lot of bad people. And we now have a closed border. You've done well. We have a closed border, and it's a really closed border. In fact, for 4 months. I don't even know if this is possible, but the figures were released. 0 people were able to come into the United States from the southern border. 0. And as you know, we've taken a very hard stand on drugs. This is also benefiting you. A lot of we call them the water drugs, the drugs that come in through water. They're not coming. There are no boats anymore. Frankly, there are no fishing boats. There's no boats out there, period. If you want to know the truth, we're saying, does anybody go fishing anymore? The fact is, we knocked out, probably saved at least 100,000 lives, American lives, Canadian lives, by taking out all those boats coming in. So it's, and now they don't come in that way anymore. Now they'll come in other ways, and we're not going to allow that either. So we've done a great job on that, but on crime, Chicago's a great city, but you can't be a great city if you have murders and if you have a lot of problems, and they do. And they have an incompetent policy, just like they had open border policy, anybody could come in. They came in from prisons, they came in from mental institutions, drug dealers, they came in from all over the place, and we don't have that anymore. This country is becoming we're a very strong country. Look, financially speaking, I would say that because of the tariffs, because of the election, because of the policy, because of the great, big, beautiful deal, it's what I added the word great because it really is. It's the biggest bill ever passed in the history of our country. We don't need another bill. It's the biggest tax cuts. When you think no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime for the people. But far beyond that, what it does is incentivizes auto plants and AI and all of the things that nobody's ever passed a bill like it. We don't need another bill. We don't need any more bills. I said, let's get it all at once. I was greatly helped by our Speaker, Mike Johnson, and by the Senate. I'll tell you what, John Thune's both of those guys have been incredible. And we got a bill passed that I said, let's see if we can get it all done. Because these Democrats are like insurrectionists, okay? They're so bad for our country. Their policy is so bad for our country. I said, let's see if we can get it all done and everybody said it's not doable. Because it's the biggest bill ever passed in the history of our country. And we got it all done. We don't need anything else. We got everything we want. And now, because of that, that's a big reason why the companies are coming in. 1 year depreciation, 1 year write-off, 1 year expensing. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So they're coming in from all over the world. But to have a great country, you can't have crime. And we don't have crime, but we have cities where there's tremendous crime. And Chicago's one of them. And if the governor can't straighten it out, we'll straighten it out. Thank you. A question for the President.
Do you remain committed to? Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to know how come the UK and the European Union have succeeded to sign deals and bring the tariffs down, and Canada still hasn't been able to do the same?
Yeah, because they're not located right next to each other. It makes it. In many cases, it's much better and easier. But
yeah, if I may, let's be clear about the relationship as it stands right now. We are the second largest trading partner of the United States. We do a lot of trade going across the border where we're cooperating, first thing. Secondly, we are the largest foreign investor in the United States. $500 billion in the last 5 years alone, probably $8 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get. Thirdly, there are areas, as the President just said, where conflict, maybe not so much conflict, we compete. There are areas where we compete, and it's in those areas where we have to come to an agreement that works. But there are more areas where we are stronger together, and that's what we're focused on. And we're going to get the right deal for America, right deal, obviously, from my perspective, for Canada.
So
including one thing that, wait. So one thing where we are working very closely is the Golden Dome. That's the protective mechanism, and you see how that works. It's unbelievable. Ronald Reagan wanted to have it, and at that time they didn't have the technology, even close to the technology. But he was advanced, and we'll be working together on a Golden Dome for the two countries, and it's something that I think is going to be very important, especially when you look at the world, you look at what's happening. We want to have that protection. It's really amazing. The technology is unbelievable.
Why do you say some federal workers should not get their back pay? Why do you say some?
Well, you're going to have to figure that out, okay? Ask the Democrats that question. Go ahead.
Mr. President, just to follow up there, I mean, the law says that when the government is reopened, that workers will receive their back pay. So are you going to defy the law there, or what do you?
I follow the law, and what the law says is correct, and I follow the law.
Mr. President, will Canada be leaving empty-handed, or will will Mr. Carney be leaving Washington with a deal on tariffs?
I think they're going to be very happy. We have a lot of things that we're working on that people don't talk about. They talk about, competitiveness. He's a very competitive person. And they talk about things that we don't necessarily agree on. But I think they're going to walk away very happy. I think so.
On all your trade deals that you've signed, there's been a minimum tariff that countries have got. When the USMCA gets renegotiated, do you want a minimum tariff on goods between Canada and the U.S.?
Well, we're going to have tariffs between Canada and, they have them with us. I will say with our farmers, as you know, they went up to as much as 400%, 250, 300, and even one at 401. We found one having to do with a very small product, but it was high. So we've always had tariffs between the two of us, and actually Canada was charging us very high tariffs on our agricultural things, a lot of our agricultural product, and that's one of the things that we talk about for bringing that down. So this is a mutual thing, but. We've been charged tariffs. Look, we're the king of being screwed by tariffs, just so you understand. And I'm not talking about with Canada. I'm talking about with countries all over the world. When you look at Europe, when you look at China, when you look at all of the, almost every country charged the U.S., we didn't charge them. Because we were led by stupid people in many cases. Stupid people. They took advantage of our country. They're not taking advantage of us anymore. If you looked at the European Union, they're all my friends. I don't blame them. I blame our presidents. I blame our past presidents and, business leaders. But we are the king of countries that have been taken advantage of for many, many years. We've been paying trillions and trillions of dollars and receiving nothing at all. As an example, prior to the deal with Europe, where they pay a lot of money, but they're happy and I'm happy. The deal was good. It's a fair deal, but it wasn't fair. You couldn't put a car into Europe. You couldn't sell your agriculture into Europe. You couldn't do anything. And now we have it so that it's open. We charge them tariffs. We didn't charge them tariffs a car. They charge us tremendous. I said to Angela Merkel once, I said, how many cars have gone to Germany from the United States? And she said, well, I don't believe any. And I said, you're right. You're right. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. And they're paying a fair amount. It's just a fair amount. It's not, I could ask for much more. It's a fair amount. But the United States now is using the same thing that they've used on us. And I just can't believe it's taken presidents so long to do this. And again, we're going to treat people fairly. We're going to especially treat Canada fairly. But I can't believe it's taken so long where we get charged and don't charge them. Japan was a good example. We made a deal with Japan. You saw that, Mark. A deal with Japan. It's a much different deal than we've had in the past. But they would send us millions of cars, no charge. We weren't allowed to send them cars. We sent them no cars. I doubt you had one car go into Japan because we were restricted. They didn't want our cars. Same thing with Europe. Same thing with other places. So now all we do now is fairness. But fairness leads us to the most successful country there's ever been. We have some advantages over other countries, and we do have a great market. We have an amazing market. But you know what? If I let this go, if we didn't win this election, if we had these people that were running, that were ruining our country, destroying our country with their open borders and men playing in women's sports and transgender from everybody and windmills all over the place, if we allowed that to go on for another couple of years, we would be, I'm not sure that we'd even have a country. Yeah, Brian.
Mr. President, how
And by the way, I'm not sure we would have even had a country. And now we have the most successful country in the world. Brian?
Yes, sir. What is your message to Democrats ahead of a next vote to open up the government? The American people are saying, open the damn government. What's your message to them right now?
Well, they're the ones that started it. They're the ones that have it. And it's almost like a kamikaze attack by them. You want to know the truth? This is like a kamikaze attack. They almost, they have nothing to lose. They've lost the elections. They've lost the presidential election in a landslide. I saw the other day where Kamala said, this was a very close election. This was one of the biggest sweeps that anybody's ever had. Won the popular vote by millions, won the Electoral College by a massive amount. They said, if I got 270, that would be great. But I got, I think, 312 or 315, and they got 220. So, we won that. But we won counties. The big thing is counties. So out of all of the counties, thousands and thousands, we got 2,500. They got 525. It was a landslide. And we listened, oh, yes, it was close. It was one of the greatest victories ever. And it was a mandate to do what we're doing. And I hope, and Mark wants this as much as I do, we are very close to making a deal on the Middle East that will bring peace to the Middle East. After all of these years of millions and millions, tens of millions of people being killed, there's a chance to bring peace to the Middle East. In addition to that, I made 7 other deals, and they're, great. And we're, things are happening with respect to Russia, Ukraine. That's one that last week, Mark, 7,812 people were killed. Soldiers, mostly soldiers. Yep. But 7,000, more than 7,000, almost 8,000 soldiers were killed. It's a crazy thing. I thought that would have been one of the easy ones. I get along very well with Putin, and I thought that would have been, I'm very disappointed in him because I thought this would have been an easy one to settle, but it's turned out to be maybe tougher than the Middle East. We'll see what happens with the Middle East. The Middle East. Go ahead, behind, yes.
Is the fentanyl crisis over with Canada, with the Canadian border?
Is what?
The fentanyl crisis.
No, it's not over. It's never. I think it's never going to be over, frankly. But Canada's worked hard, and they've done a much better job than in the past. We have very few people coming in through our southern border, too. We've worked with Canada, and we've worked with Mexico, so we've made it a lot better.
Look, Canada is too much. Wait. On fentanyl, any amount is too much. So we've gotten it down. It's down substantially. It's less than 1%, but it's still too much. It's too much at home in Canada.
A lot of people.
Yeah, we got to stamp it out.
USMCA, are the two of you both committed to seeing it through in the renegotiation of that deal that you made?
Well, we can renegotiate it, and that would be good, or we could just do different deals. We're allowed to do different deals if we want. We might make deals that are better for the individual countries. I don't care. I want to make whatever the best deal is for this country, and also very much with Canada in mind. Yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead, sir.
Sir, on China, what more can the United States and Canada do together to counter China?
Well, you have to be able to compete. They're a great competitor, and Mark and I both know that, and you have to be able to compete. We have big advantages over China for lots of different reasons, and I think we're doing very well with China. I get along very well with President Xi. I'm going to be meeting him in a few weeks, as you know. I'll be meeting him in South Korea, but we've had a very good relationship for a long time. But you have to be able to compete. To do well with China, if you can't compete, you're not going to do well with China. And Canada is very competitive. I can tell you that. Canada is a very competitive country. And I think Canada's done very well over the years with China.
Yeah, we have. But we'll do better together on that.
Mr. President, on the Middle East, what guarantees are you giving your Arab partners that Israel will not resume its offensive after the hostages are released?
Well, the primary guarantee is once this deal happens, if it does happen, look, they're in negotiations right now, we are going to do everything possible. We have a lot of power, and we're going to do everything possible to make sure everybody adheres to the deal. Okay?
Mr. President,
concerned about the delays at airports, and how do you see the shutdown lately?
Oh, sure. I mean, they're all Democrat delays. There are delays at the airport. That's standard. And again, this is something that every day we put forth a bill. It's just a continuation. It's a very simple thing to sign and very simple to do. And I really think that these are people that I think they have nothing to lose. They have a party that's out of control. They have no leader. Nobody knows who the leader is. I look at people with very low IQs like Crockett, this woman Crockett. I never met her, but she's a low IQ individual. I look at AOC talking about how if they want to negotiate, they can come to my office. She's not in that position to do that. And who the hell is she to say that? And then I watch Nancy Pelosi not knowing what to do. I watch their leadership. Look, Schumer is petrified of primary because he's not going to win probably against anybody in a primary. You know, Schumer did the right thing, but he handled it badly originally a year ago. He did probably the right thing, but he handled it badly. I think Schumer's incapable of making a deal. They are a mess. They're a party that has no leadership. They have, and they have no policy. You know, I think we have great leadership, but we also have great policy. We have strong borders. We have no men and women's sports. I mean, basic things. We're not going to take your child away and change the sex of your child. We're not going to do things like that. What they're doing to the country is so incredible. And they got away with it with all their woke crap, and now it's stopped. And we have a country that's based on common sense and strength and intelligence. I mean, we have the United States of America, and I say it all the time. Other leaders have told me this. Mark hasn't yet, but I think he would. A year ago, we were a dead country, and now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. Maybe Canada. I'll give Canada, but because I do like Canada. But you know, we're the hottest country in the world right now. There's never been a country that has the kind of money coming into. There's never been anything like this. There has never been a country that if you take $1 trillion, that would be unbelievable. We're going to have over $20 trillion invested in this country. There's never been anything like what you're seeing, and it's based on good policy and common sense and leadership. Yeah.
Mr. President, what is Canada giving you in return? If you say Mr. Carney is going to be leaving Washington happy, what's Canada giving you in return?
Well, you'll find out, but I think the people of Canada, they will love us again. Most of them still do. If you say only 25%, I assume a lot of them, I think they love us. And you know what? I'm not the biggest hockey fan, but I like it a lot. And I watched some of the greatest hockey games I've ever. How good were those games, right?
Yeah, very good. We're coming down for the World Series, Mr. President.
Oh, good.
Canadians.
By the way, your team is.
Mr. President, will you sign a trade deal with Canada that doesn't include supply managed goods like dairy, for example? If the federal government.
Well, a deal would include dairy. I mean, it's going to include everything. We'll do a comprehensive.
Have you identified programs to eliminate under this shutdown?
Oh, sure.
Which ones?
We have a lot. I'm not going to tell you, but we'll be announcing it pretty soon. But we have a lot of things that we're going to eliminate and permanently eliminate. You know, one of the things that we have is some advantage, you could say. But because of the shutdown, which I think they made a big mistake, we're able to take out billions and billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse. And they've handed it, on a silver platter. And you know Russell Vogt, he's a serious person, very serious person, and he's sitting there and he's getting ready to cut things. And this is something that was handed to us by, I assume, Schumer. I just don't know if Schumer has any power anymore. I look at your leadership, I don't know who to speak to. I'll tell you what, I'm getting calls from Democrats wanting to meet. I never even heard their names before, and they're claiming to be leaders. The Democrats have no leader. They remind me of Somalia, okay? And I met the president of Somalia. I told him about the problem he's got. I said, you have somebody from Somalia who's telling us how to run our country. She's from Somalia. He said, would you like to take her back? He said, no, I don't want her. Okay, you know who I'm talking about?
What workers are you talking about?
Say it again,
How many permanent jobs are you talking about to be eliminated?
Well, I can tell you, I'll be able to tell you that in 4 or 5 days if this keeps going on. If this keeps going on, it'll be substantial, and a lot of those jobs will never come back. But you're going to have a lot closer to a balanced budget, actually.
Is there anything the Prime Minister has done that's making it more difficult to reach a deal?
Say it.
Is there anything that the Prime Minister has done that's making it more difficult or easier to reach a deal?
No, I think he's a great Prime Minister. I mean, he could represent me anytime. I will tell you, I'm not saying that because he's... No, he is a very strong, very good leader. He's a nice man, but he could be nasty. He could be very nasty, maybe as nasty as anybody.
How?
I think Canada, let me put it this way, I can tell you this because I deal with lots of leaders all over the world. He is a world-class leader. He's a man that knows what he wants, and I'm not surprised to see that he won the election and won it substantially, and I would think he's more popular now. He's a good man. He does a great job, and he's a tough negotiator.
So then what's holding things up? If he's a great man and you want to do a deal with Canada, why aren't you?
Because I want to be a great man, too. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. That could have been. I think you got that one. That could have been. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hard to finish on a better note.
All right, laughs all around there. You've been watching Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and President Trump at the White House. Trade and peace in Gaza on the agenda. Taking questions from reporters, Trump said there was great love between the two countries, but also a natural business conflict, and that they've come a long way. If you recall, there was more tension in recent months. But Carney also said today that it's more like competing between the two countries, not conflict. And he said he's confident both nations will reach the right deal for each country. He also said fentanyl trafficking is a scourge for both countries and that it has to be dealt with. That, of course, is a topic fueling some of the tariffs that no doubt will be discussed today. We'll keep you updated there. Next, we're entering day 7 of the government shutdown back here in the U.S. Staffing shortages at airports are causing delays, and President Trump says he's talking to Democrats about health care, and that's a demand that they have to reopen the government. NTD's Melina Weiskup reports.
As we enter the 7th day of a government shutdown, an increasing number of air traffic controllers have called in sick, causing delays at airports.
In regard to controllers, yeah, there's controllers that have called out sick, so we're tracking it, and I don't have a continual problem in one area, right? There's been, one facility one day, another facility another day. Some areas there's been a 50% reduction in some of the staffing.
While controllers are deemed critical staff, there is no guarantee that they will get their next paycheck on October 14th. One airport expected to be closed down completely today. With no one in the towers, a number of flights at Hollywood at Burbank Airport were delayed or canceled on Monday.
We do not have the luxury of time. We do not have time to waste on the unnecessary distractions created by this shutdown. So our message is clear. End the shutdown.
On Capitol Hill Monday, senators again failed to pass a resolution to fund the government. Democrats and Republicans remain headstrong on their positions.
There's nothing for us to negotiate or to debate right now because the House already did that. The House did its job. We passed our bill. We did the job to keep the government open, and now it's on the Senate Democrats.
Democrats, we're standing up for all these health care programs, for Medicare, Medicaid, NIH, for the Affordable Care Act, for the protection for the premiums and the health care of every single American in our country.
President Trump says he's talking with Democrats on health care, though he wouldn't say specifically who the White House is negotiating with, a statement Democrat leaders dismissed.
We have a negotiation going on right now with the Democrats that could lead to very good things.
What kind of
and I'm talking about good things with regard to health care.
Are you speaking with Democratic leaders? What kind of negotiations?
Well, I don't want to say that.
Do you know what Donald Trump was referring to when he said he'd been speaking with some Democrats?
They later, as I understand it, he has not been speaking to any Democrats.
Only 5 more Senate Democrats are needed to join on the Republicans' bill to fund the government through November. The Senate plans to continue voting, Republicans hopeful that the repeated votes will pressure rank-and-file Democrats to fold. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Attorney General Pam Bondi appeared on Capitol Hill today to take questions from senators. Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley focused on new evidence of what he called political weaponization under the Biden administration. Here's Grassley.
Was Attorney General, on the same subject, was Attorney General Garland, Director Wray, and or President Biden's White House aware of the FBI targeting Republican senators? Did they approve it? Now let's be clear. Either they knew and allowed it to happen, or they didn't know. And if they didn't know, it points to a lack of oversight of Jack Smith's runaway case.
Chairman Grassley, that's what we've been talking about when we refer to the weaponization of government. Operation Arctic Frost was an unconstitutional, undemocratic abuse of power. During Arctic Frost, the FBI also placed 92 linked Republican individuals and Republican groups, such as Charlie Kirk's Turning Point, on their list. This is the kind of conduct that shattered the American people's faith in our government, as I said in my opening statement. We are ending this weaponization. Our FBI is targeting violent criminals, child predators, and other lawbreakers, not sitting senators who happen to be from the wrong political party. Several of your colleagues sitting at this dais were targeted, and others. We will continue to stop that throughout the Justice Department. That is the ultimate weaponization of government.
Bondi stressed in the opening statement that the Justice Department has 2 main goals under her leadership: to end the weaponization of government and to fight violent crime. She said the department has made tremendous progress towards those ends. The Attorney General clashed with Democratic senators over the Epstein files and the deployment of the National Guard to Chicago. Here's Senator Dick Durbin.
Why do you want to keep this secret? The American people don't know the rationale behind the deployment of National Guard troops in my state. The word is, and I think it's been confirmed by the White House, they are going to transfer Texas National Guard units to the state of Illinois. What's the rationale for that?
Yeah, Chairman, as you shut down the government, you voted to shut down the government, and you're sitting here, our law enforcement officers aren't being paid. They're out there working to protect you. I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump. And currently, the National Guard are on the way to Chicago. If you're not going to protect your citizens, President Trump will.
Been on this committee for more than 20 years. That's the kind of testimony you expect from this administration. A simple question as to whether or not they had a legal rationale for deploying National Guard troops becomes grounds for a personal attack. I think it's a legitimate question.
Bondi referred to Chicago's high crime rate and sanctuary policies, saying the city is sheltering illegal immigrant criminals and gangs. She said the Trump administration is going into cities like Chicago to make these places safe, whether they want it or not. Senate Republicans say the FBI spied on 8 senators during Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation into the January 6th Capitol breach. Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley said the FBI accessed the senators' phone records. Here are the details.
Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley said his investigation uncovered proof that the FBI under the Biden administration accessed the private phone records of 8 Republican senators. This was allegedly during Special Counsel Jack Smith's Arctic Frost probe into the events of January 6, 2021. He called it a case of political weaponization worse than Watergate. Grassley released a redacted FBI document dated September 27, 2023. The file lists several Republican senators, including Lindsey Graham, Marsha Blackburn, and Ron Johnson, under a section labeled Preliminary Toll Analysis. Grassley says his committee has found no legal justification for the FBI's actions and believes the effort reflects political targeting of Republican lawmakers.
There's no predicate that we can find for the solicitation of these telephone records, which I think emphasizes the political weaponization that was behind all this effort.
Other Republican senators named in the document are backing Grassley's call for accountability.
This memo was dated September of 2023. To put it all into context, the Mar-a-Lago raid occurred in August of 2022. Jack Smith announced the indictments against President Trump in August of 2023. So this is almost 2 months later. This doesn't surprise me, but it should shock every American.
Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee says the FBI's actions were politically motivated.
No cause, no reason, no predicate, other than all Republicans and all very supportive of President Trump.
President Trump also weighed in. Speaking to Newsmax Monday, he described Special Counsel Jack Smith's actions as an abuse of power.
What he did to the lives of so many people, and he tried on me, this guy was a bad guy. And you know, the reason he lost is because he went too far. When you go too far, sometimes you get away with it, but they didn't get away with it here.
FBI Director Kash Patel said agents accessed lawmakers' phone data for political purposes. He said the abuse of power ends now and vowed the Bureau will never again be weaponized against the American people. Grassley says his committee will continue investigating what he calls abuses by the FBI through the Biden White House.
California voters are weighing a high-stakes redistricting plan that could reshape the balance of power in Congress ahead of the 2026 midterms. The plan, known as Prop 50, would give redistricting power back to the legislature instead of the state's independent commission. Governor Gavin Newsom is leading the campaign for the passage, pushing the plan as critical to keeping Republicans from full control in Washington. He argues the measure is critical to limiting Trump's influence in the second half of his term. The plan is intended to offset Trump's moves in Texas to gain 5 Republican districts ahead of the midterms. Republicans, led by former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, argue the plan is a step backwards and would undermine democracy. Voting is already underway, and results will be decided when ballots are counted on November 4th. Tennessee is holding a special primary election today to fill a House of Representatives seat. The Republican-leaning district is crucial to Republican control of the chamber. Here are some of the leading candidates. Matt Van Epps is a former Army officer and helicopter pilot. The former commissioner of the Tennessee Department of General Services resigned this year to run. He was also an aide to Governor Bill Lee and was the state's deputy chief operating officer. The district's former representative, Mark Green, has endorsed Van Epps to fill his seat. Tennessee State Representative Joseph Michael Barrett is currently leading polling by a small margin with 10% support. Barrett is running on a Christian conservative platform and has promised to, quote, fight the liberal elites trying to destroy our way of life. Fellow Tennessee State Representative Gino Buslow is running as well. He's polling second to Barrett with 8.9% support. According to a new report by Reuters, the Chinese Communist Party is running fake social media accounts impersonating Filipinos and paying off their officials and influencers, all to drive a wedge between the U.S. and the island nation. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
Don't believe everything you see on social media. The Chinese Communist Party is leading an operation to start up fake Facebook and X accounts and pay off social media influencers in an effort to weaken the U.S. alliance with the Philippines, among others. That's according to a new report from Reuters, which reviewed internal documents from a Chinese-owned marketing company based in the Philippines called Infinitus. Authorities in the Philippines also say Infinitus was paid by the CCP to start hundreds of fake accounts posing as Filipino writers and create anti-American content. This issue came under the spotlight back in April by former top Philippine official Francis Tolentino. He accused Infinitus of being paid by the Chinese embassy to spread pro-CCP propaganda.
They manufacture fake social media content against the Philippine government's policy, pretending to be motivated about concerns about peace in the region, and manipulate and ultimately destroy the Philippines' ability to oppose China.
But it goes further than that. One report from November 2024 found that this army of social media trolls pushed a video condemning the U.S. deploying missiles to the Philippines. The accounts also pushed pro-CCP posts by dozens of Filipino media personalities, all of whom received awards from the Association of Philippines-China Understanding, which is an agency set up by the former Philippine President Gloria Arroyo and a CCP agency, all of which the U.S. is accused of co-opting subnational governments. The Philippines is a strategic location for Washington and Beijing, for that matter, due to its close proximity to Taiwan. The CCP has threatened to invade Taiwan by 2027, to which the U.S. has promised to defend its interests. But U.S. officials say that this may lead to an economic depression worldwide. In the last few years, China has become increasingly aggressive in this region, with CCP military vessels ramming Philippine Coast Guard vessels, as well as firing water cannons at them and even blocking them from carrying out resupply missions. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
I'm Stephania Cox, and this is World Watch. 3 U.S.-based scientists have won this year's Nobel Prize in Physics for discoveries that reveal quantum mechanics in action. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences awarded the honor to John Clark of UC Berkeley, Michel de Vere of Yale University, and John Martinez of UC Santa Barbara.
For the discovery of macroscopic quantum mechanical tunneling and energy quantization in an electric circuit.
Their experiments used tiny electrical circuits to demonstrate quantum tunneling and quantized energy levels, phenomena once thought visible only in atoms. Officials say their work opens the door to advances in quantum computers, encryption, and precision sensors. The 2025 Nobel Physics Prize, it carries a total award of 11 million Swedish crowns, about $1.2 million, shared among the 3 laureates. And Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te says President Trump would merit the Nobel Peace Prize if he can persuade China to rule out military action against the island. Lai praised Trump's influence with China's Xi Jinping on a conservative U.S. talk show. He said a lasting pledge of non-aggression would be a true breakthrough for peace in Asia. Lai also warned Trump to watch China's growing military exercises in the Taiwan Strait and beyond. Taiwan's defense ministry reported new Chinese aircraft and naval patrols around the island just hours after Lai's remarks. The Nobel Peace Prize winner will be announced Friday in Oslo. And a major theft case in England. London's police said they've broken up a criminal gang suspected of smuggling 40,000 stolen mobile phones to China. 46 people were arrested in the case over the last 2 weeks. Police say the gang could be behind about 40% of all phone thefts in London. Police say the investigation started last year. A box containing around 1,000 iPhones was discovered at a warehouse near London's Heathrow Airport. The box was being shipped to Hong Kong. The group specifically targeted Apple products because they fetch high prices overseas. Many global cities have seen a surge in the number of devices stolen in recent years. All right, that's us for the moment, but if you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'll cover more stories right after this break.
A performance that truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. Shen Yun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL. And look what it's done. I feel better than I've felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
Edan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox. That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney visited the White House for the second time in 5 months. A look at what issues he discussed with President Trump. Attorney General Pam Bondi clashes with senators on the deployment of the National Guard to Chicago. And the past conduct by the Biden administration. We tune in to the hearing and her testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee. It's day 7 of the government shutdown, and we look at the shortages at airports are causing delays, and President Trump says he's talking to Democrats about healthcare. We have the latest. On the second anniversary of the October 7th attacks, mediators are working to implement President Trump's peace plan for the Gaza Strip, the status of the negotiations, and how likely it is the fighting could come to an end. US-based scientists win the Nobel Prize in Physics, honored for experiments that revealed quantum mechanics in action.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today is Tuesday, October 7th. I'm Victoria White. Attorney General Pam Bondi appeared on Capitol Hill today to take questions from senators. Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley focused on new evidence of what he called political weaponization under the Biden administration. Here's Grassley.
Was Attorney General, on the same subject, was Attorney General Garland, Director Wray, and or President Biden's White House aware of the FBI targeting Republican senators? Did they approve it? Now let's be clear, either they knew and allowed it to happen or they didn't know, and if they didn't know, it points to a lack of oversight of Jack Smith's runaway case.
Chairman Grassley, that's what we've been talking about when we refer to the weaponization of government. Operation Arctic Frost was an unconstitutional, undemocratic abuse of power. During Arctic Frost, the FBI also placed 92 linked Republican individuals and Republican groups, such as Charlie Kirk's Turning Point, on their list. This is the kind of conduct that shattered the American people's faith in our government, as I said in my opening statement. We are ending this weaponization. Our FBI is targeting violent criminals, child predators, and other lawbreakers, not sitting senators who happen to be from the wrong political party. Several of your colleagues sitting at this dais were targeted, and others. We will continue to stop that throughout the Justice Department. That is the ultimate weaponization of government.
Bondi stressed in the opening statement that the Justice Department has two main goals under her leadership: to end the weaponization of government and fight violent crime. She said the department has made tremendous progress towards those ends. The Attorney General clashed with Democratic senators over the Epstein files and the deployment of the National Guard to Chicago. Here's Senator Dick Durbin.
Why do you want to keep this secret? The American people don't know the rationale behind the deployment of National Guard troops in my state. The word is, and I think it's been confirmed by the White House, they are going to transfer Texas National Guard units to the state of Illinois. What's the rationale for that?
Yeah, Chairman, as you shut down the government, you voted to shut down the government, and you're sitting here, our law enforcement officers aren't being paid. They're out there working to protect you. I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump. And currently, the National Guard are on the way to Chicago. If you're not going to protect your citizens, President Trump will.
I've been on this committee for more than 20 years. That's the kind of testimony you expect from this administration. A simple question as to whether or not they had a legal rationale for deploying National Guard troops becomes grounds for a personal attack. I think it's a legitimate question.
Bondi referred to Chicago's high crime rate and sanctuary policies, saying the city is sheltering illegal immigrant criminals and gangs. She said the Trump administration is going into cities like Chicago to make these places safe, whether they want it or not. We're entering day 7 of the government shutdown. Staffing shortages at airports are causing delays, and President Trump says he's talking to Democrats about healthcare, a demand they have to reopen the government. NTD's Melina Wisecup reports.
As we enter the 7th day of a government shutdown, an increasing number of air traffic controllers have called in sick, causing delays at airports.
In regard to controllers, yeah, there's controllers that have called out sick. So we're tracking it, and I don't have a continual problem in one area, right? There's been, one facility one day, another facility another day. Some areas there's been a 50% reduction in some of the staffing.
While controllers are deemed critical staff, there is no guarantee that they will get their next paycheck on October 14th. One airport expected to be closed down completely today. With no one in the towers, a number of flights at Hollywood Burbank Airport were delayed or canceled on Monday.
We do not have the luxury of time. We do not have time to waste on the unnecessary distractions created by this shutdown. So our message is clear: end the shutdown.
On Capitol Hill Monday, senators again failed to pass a resolution to fund the government. Democrats and Republicans remain headstrong on their positions.
There's nothing for us to negotiate or to debate right now, because the House already did that. The House did its job. We passed our bill. We did the job to keep the government open, and now it's on the Senate Democrats.
Democrats, we're standing up for all these health care programs, for Medicare, Medicaid, NIH, for the Affordable Care Act, for the protection for the premiums and the health care of every single American in our country.
President Trump says he's talking with Democrats on health care, though he wouldn't say specifically who the White House is negotiating with, a statement Democrat leaders dismissed.
We have a negotiation going on right now with the Democrats that could lead to very good things.
What kind of
and I'm talking about good things with regard to health care.
Are you speaking with Democratic leaders? What kind of negotiations?
Well, I don't want to say that.
Do you know what Donald Trump was referring to when he said he'd been speaking with some Democrats?
They later, as I understand it, he has not been speaking to any Democrats.
Only 5 more Senate Democrats are needed to join on the Republicans' bill to fund the government through November. The Senate plans to continue voting, Republicans hopeful that the repeated votes will pressure rank-and-file Democrats to fold. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Mediators are working to implement President Trump's peace plan for the Gaza Strip. Qatar's foreign ministry says many details still have to be worked out, but all parties involved want to stick with Trump's plan.
All parties have agreed to this plan, so there are no obstacles now in terms of agreeing to the 20 points contained in President Trump's plan. The obstacles now are in implementation.
The spokesperson added that Qatar is neither optimistic nor pessimistic about the outcome of the negotiations so far. A spokesperson for Hamas says the terrorist group is also committed to Trump's plan, so the fighting in Gaza can stop. Germany's foreign minister confirmed that he sees willingness on all sides to implement the points outlined by the president. The German minister is among the officials in Egypt today working out the details of the possible ceasefire. Trump's plan is widely seen as the most promising yet for ending the Israel-Hamas war, which started exactly 2 years ago. Thousands are coming together across southern Israel to honor the memory of loved ones killed by Hamas on October 7th, 2023. The terror attack left more than 1,000 people dead, including hundreds who were attending a music festival. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on how family members are coping with the attack 2 years later.
At the site of the Nova Music Festival, relatives and friends take in hundreds of photos of their loved ones. Yehuda Ramani visits every morning. He thinks about his daughter Sharon, a police officer killed at the event.
We live this day by day unaware of what happened. That's what hurts us the most. We have no idea what happened, and all this time we've been looking for information about what happened that day, and we still don't to this day.
Negotiations for a potential ceasefire between Israel and Hamas are underway in Egypt. But for Ramani, a peace agreement would come too late.
What will it give me? What will it give me? My daughter? I've already paid my price. If there will be a ceasefire or there will not be a ceasefire. What does it matter that the terrorists sit in detention cells and get good food and thick mattresses, and we sit here and cry here every day instead of giving us answers?
Nova Festival attendee Alon Musnikov says revisiting the site doesn't mean much to him. His memory of the attack remains.
Specifically, being here is not too moving for me. Because you live it every day it comes to your mind at least once. The fact that we are here specifically, yes, is a little unsettling, but not significantly.
Hamas's October 7th, 2023 attack killed 1,200 people. Gaza's Hamas-controlled health ministry says the ensuing wars killed over 67,000 Palestinians. The ministry does not distinguish between civilians and Hamas terrorists. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Today is October 7th, meaning 2 years have now passed since the terrorist attacks in Israel. Since President Trump returned to office, he's been working to bring peace to the Middle East. Here's a look back at the efforts so far.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
Much has changed in the Middle East since President Trump was inaugurated for the second time in January. One of the administration's goals has been to stop the fighting between Israel and Hamas terrorists, as was highlighted during Trump's inauguration.
Pray that the next 4 years brings peace to Israel and throughout the Middle East.
People in Gaza were cheerful a day before Trump returned to office, as Israel and Hamas had agreed to a ceasefire. Many Trump supporters at the time said Hamas accepted the truce due to Trump's anticipated return and his strong stance on the Gaza conflict. In early February, Hamas released 3 hostages in a highly televised event. Israel later released Palestinian prisoners. The swaps are part of the ceasefire agreements between the two sides. Many criticized the early hostage releases by Hamas, saying they were not safe as the captives were surrounded and swarmed by thousands of people, many of them armed. Israel also withdrew from the Netzarim corridor in Gaza. This allowed thousands of displaced Palestinians to move back to the northern part of the Gaza Strip. But the ceasefire ended after 2 months on March 18th after Israel hit targets in the Palestinian enclave. The Israeli military said the strikes were necessary due to reorganization by Hamas, which would have ended up hurting Israel. As spring progressed, the Iranian regime got involved more and more in the fighting against Israel. The Jewish state retaliated, striking military targets in Tehran, which forced some Iranian civilians to flee the city. The escalations led to the U.S. sending stealth bombers to Iran, striking 3 nuclear sites in late June. The pilots took off from the U.S., flew across the globe to Iran, hit the targets, and returned to the U.S.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
The attacks on Iran's nuclear sites stopped the direct fighting between Israel and Iran, bringing an end to what is now known as the 12-Day War. And now, on October 7, 2025, 2 years after the attacks, peace in the Middle East might be closer than ever before. President Trump unveiled a 20-point peace plan during a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in late September.
If we work together, we can bring an end to the death and destruction that we've seen for so many years, decades, even centuries.
Some of the key points of the plan are the withdrawal of Israeli forces to an agreed-upon line, the release of all Israeli hostages, the release of Palestinian prisoners, and a major surge of aid into Gaza. Israel agreed to the plan on the day Trump presented it. Hamas agreed to some of the points last Friday, including the release of all hostages, dead or alive, but has not agreed to disarm or give up a role in governing Gaza in the future. Just on Monday, European leaders said the first phase of the plan could be implemented as soon as this week, potentially pausing the fighting in Gaza and Israel.
President Trump is planning to meet with Edan Alexander today, the American who was held hostage by Hamas for 584 days and believed to be the last surviving U.S. hostage. Meanwhile, high-stake talks between Israel and the Hamas terror group enter their second day today. President Donald Trump says he's pretty much made a decision on whether to send Ukraine long-range Tomahawk missiles. He made the comments yesterday. The president said Ukraine still needs to answer some questions before he makes it final. Take a listen.
Yeah, I've sort of made a decision, pretty much, if you consider. I think I want to find out what they're doing with them. Yes. Where are they sending them, I guess. I'd have to ask that question.
Tomahawk missiles can travel more than 1,000 miles. That range would allow Ukraine to hit targets anywhere in European Russia, including Moscow. Trump also said that he does not want the Russia-Ukraine war to escalate. The Kremlin today responded that it's waiting for clarity from Washington about the possible missile supply. A Senate committee says the FBI under former President Biden spied on GOP senators as part of a January 6th probe. Senate Republicans are calling it weaponization of the agency.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how's sketches? Vaping. It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes. Look at that. You even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight. Skylar, come here. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney made his second visit to the White House in 5 months today. The Canadian leader called President Trump a transformative president as the two sat in the Oval Office for a face-to-face meeting. The two leaders also joked about the merger of Canada and the United States.
We are a transformative president, and since then, the transformation in the economy, unprecedented commitments of NATO partners to defense spending, peace from India, Pakistan through to Azerbaijan, Armenia, disabling Iran as a force of terror, and now, and I'm running out of time, but this is in many respects the most important.
The merger of Canada and the United States.
That wasn't where I was going.
Trump said they will discuss the war in Gaza. He added there's a possibility for peace in the Middle East. Talking about trade conflicts, Trump called trade negotiations with Canada complicated. He said the two countries are in competition.
It's a complicated agreement, more complicated maybe than any other agreement we have on trade, because, we have natural conflict. We also have mutual love. We have great love for each other. I love this. I love Canada, the people of Canada. And Mark feels the same way about here. The problem we have is that they want a car company and I want a car company, meaning the U.S. wants a car company. And they want steel and we want steel. And, so in other countries, they're very far away. And there's no problem. You can compete and you can do. We don't like to compete because we sort of hurt each other when we compete. And so we have a natural conflict. It's a natural business conflict. Nothing wrong with it.
When asked about offering Canada a compromise on U.S. metal tariffs, Trump said compromises have already been made. He added they're working on a plan, saying, quote, "We'll get there." Carney also said that both sides will reach the right deal. The two leaders also talked about shared borders. Trump said his administration is taking a hard stand on drugs entering the U.S. by water. He says this effort is helping Canada too. Carney notes that Canada is also tightening its border. Senate Republicans say the FBI spied on 8 senators during Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation into the January 6th Capitol breach. Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley said the FBI accessed the senators' phone records. Here are the details.
Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley said his investigation uncovered proof that the FBI under the Biden administration accessed the private phone records of 8 Republican senators. This was allegedly during Special Counsel Jack Smith's Arctic Frost probe into the events of January 6, 2021. He called it a case of political weaponization worse than Watergate. Grassley released a redacted FBI document dated September 27, 2023. The file lists several Republican senators, including Lindsey Graham, Marsha Blackburn, and Ron Johnson, under a section labeled Preliminary Toll Analysis. Grassley says his committee has found no legal justification for the FBI's actions and believes the effort reflects political targeting of Republican lawmakers.
There's no predicate that we can find for the solicitation of these telephone records, which I think emphasizes the political weaponization that was behind all this effort.
Other Republican senators named in the document are backing Grassley's call for accountability.
This memo was dated September of 2023. To put it all into context, the Mar-a-Lago raid occurred in August of 2022. Jack Smith announced the indictments against President Trump in August of 2023. So this is almost 2 months later. This doesn't surprise me, but it should shock every American.
Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee says the FBI's actions were politically motivated.
No cause, no reason, no predicate, other than all Republicans and all very supportive of President Trump.
President Trump also weighed in. Speaking to Newsmax Monday, he described Special Counsel Jack Smith's actions as an abuse of power.
What he did to the lives of so many people, and he tried on me, this guy was a bad guy. And you know, the reason he lost is because he went too far. When you go too far, sometimes you get away with it, but they didn't get away with it here.
FBI Director Kash Patel said agents accessed lawmakers' phone data for political purposes. He said the abuse of power ends now and vowed the Bureau will never again be weaponized against the American people. Grassley says his committee will continue investigating what he calls abuses by the FBI through the Biden White House.
Tennessee is holding a special primary election today to fill a House of Representatives seat. The Republican-leaning district is crucial to Republican control of the chamber. Here are some of the leading candidates. Matt Van Epps is a former Army officer and helicopter pilot. The former commissioner of the Tennessee Department of General Services resigned this year to run. He was also an aide to Governor Bill Lee and was the state's deputy chief operating officer. The district's former representative Mark Green has endorsed Van Epps to fill his seat. Tennessee State Representative Joseph Michael Barrett is currently leading polling by a small margin with 10% support. Barrett is running on a Christian conservative platform and has promised to, quote, fight the liberal elites trying to destroy our way of life. Fellow Tennessee State Representative Gino Buslow is running as well. He's polling second to Barrett with 8.9% support. California voters are weighing a high-stakes redistricting plan that could reshape the balance of power in Congress ahead of the 2026 midterms. The plan, known as Prop 50, would give redistricting power back to the legislature instead of the state's independent commission. Governor Gavin Newsom is heading the campaign for passage, pushing the plan as critical to keeping Republicans from full control in Washington. He argues the measure is critical to limiting Trump's influence in the second half of his term. The plan is intended to offset Trump's moves in Texas to gain 5 Republican districts ahead of the midterms. Republicans, led by former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, argue the plan is a step backwards and would undermine democracy. Voting is already underway and results will be decided when ballots are counted on November 4th. A federal appeals court will reconsider whether Louisiana's 10 Commandments classroom law violates the First Amendment. The measure, known as House Bill 71, required every public school classroom to display the 10 Commandments. In June, a panel of judges unanimously found the law plainly unconstitutional, citing a 1980 Supreme Court ruling that blocked a similar Kentucky law. Louisiana officials argue the Supreme Court has since narrowed that precedent and that the displays reflect America's founding principles. Attorney General Liz Murrill praised the court's decision to rehear the case. She had previously said she was willing to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. President Trump says he's reviving a long-standing mining project in Alaska. The move reopens a major debate over jobs, energy, and environmental protection in the Alaskan wilderness.
We have a very big signing today having to do with Alaska, a place that I'm very familiar with. And we're making it greater, bigger, and more powerful, and job producing. It's an economic gold mine, so to speak. And I signed this years ago, and Biden unsigned it for me.
Trump yesterday signed an executive order allowing construction of a 200-mile road to Alaska's Ambler mining district, which he says unlocks access to copper and other critical minerals. The decision reverses the Biden administration's rejection of the road. Biden's Interior Department had cited threats to fish and caribou populations vital to many native communities. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum said the project would unlock minerals needed to win the artificial intelligence arms race against China. Supporters say the road will bring jobs and revenue to Alaska while providing minerals used in cars, electronics, and renewable energy production. But opponents, including dozens of Alaska Native tribes, warn that the development would endanger traditional hunting and fishing grounds. Meteorologists have upgraded a deadly North Dakota tornado to an EF5, the strongest category of tornado. With winds roaring past 210 miles per hour, they say it was the strongest tornado in the US in 12 years. The June 20th storm struck near Edan, killing 3 people and cutting a 12-mile path more than a mile wide across the prairie. Survey teams examined how the tornado uprooted trees, toppled transmission towers, and overturned rail cars before confirming its EF5 rating. Forecasters say warm and moist air combined with strong wind shear, that's a change in wind speed or direction, created the perfect setup for the violent tornado. Scientists warn tornadoes are appearing more often in the Midwest and South, where they threaten larger population centres. London police bust a major phone theft ring, 46 arrests in a scheme that smuggled tens of thousands of stolen phones to China.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week, still couldn't pay the bills. Skipped meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. You know, I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 children face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive, and they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for families across America.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay," and I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger, from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now. With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
I'm Victoria White, and this is World News. 3 US-based scientists have won this year's Nobel Prize in Physics for discoveries that reveal quantum mechanics in action. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences awarded the honor to John Clark of UC Berkeley, Michael Deverett of Yale University, and John Martinez of UC Santa Barbara.
For the discovery of macroscopic quantum mechanical tunneling and energy quantization in an electric circuit.
Their experiments used tiny electrical circuits to demonstrate quantum tunneling and quantized energy levels, phenomena once thought visible only in atoms. Officials say their work opens the door to advances in quantum computers, encryption, and precision sensors. The 2025 Nobel Physics Prize carries a total award of 11 million Swedish crowns, about $1.2 million, shared among the 3 laureates. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te says President Trump would merit the Nobel Peace Prize if he can persuade China to rule out military action against the island. Lai praised Trump's influence with China's Xi Jinping on a conservative US talk show. He said a lasting pledge of non-aggression would be a true breakthrough for peace in Asia. Lai also warned Trump to watch China's growing military exercises in the Taiwan Strait and beyond. Taiwan's defense ministry reported new Chinese aircraft and naval patrols around the island just hours after Lai's remarks. The Nobel Peace Prize winner will be announced on Friday in Oslo. A major theft case in England. London police said they have broken up a criminal gang suspected of smuggling 40,000 stolen mobile phones to China. 46 people were arrested in the case over the last 2 weeks. Police say the gang could be behind about 40% of all phone thefts in London. Police says the investigation started last year. A box containing around 1,000 iPhones was discovered at a warehouse near London's Heathrow Airport. The box was being shipped to Hong Kong. The group specifically targeted Apple products because they fetch higher prices overseas. Many global cities have seen a surge in the number of stolen devices in recent years. According to a new report by Reuters, the Chinese Communist Party is running fake social media accounts impersonating Filipinos and paying off their officials and influencers, all to drive a wedge between the US and the island nation. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
Don't believe everything you see on social media. The Chinese Communist Party is leading an operation to start up fake Facebook and X accounts and pay off social media influencers in an effort to weaken the U.S. alliance with the Philippines, among others. That's according to a new report from Reuters, which reviewed internal documents from a Chinese-owned marketing company based in the Philippines called Infinitus. Authorities in the Philippines also say Infinitus was paid by the CCP to start hundreds of fake accounts posing as Filipino writers and create anti-American content. This issue came under the spotlight back in April by former top Philippine official Francis Tolentino. He accused Infinitus of being paid by the Chinese embassy to spread pro-CCP propaganda.
They manufacture fake social media content against the Philippine government's policy, pretending to be motivated about concerns about peace in the region, and manipulate and ultimately destroy the Philippines' ability to oppose China.
But it goes further than that. One report from November 2024 found that this army of social media trolls pushed a video condemning the U.S. deploying missiles to the Philippines. The accounts also pushed pro-CCP posts by dozens of Filipino media personalities, all of whom received awards from the Association of Philippines-China Understanding, which is an agency set up by the former Philippine President Gloria Arroyo and a CCP agency. all of which the U.S. is accused of co-opting subnational governments. The Philippines is a strategic location for Washington and Beijing, for that matter, due to its close proximity to Taiwan. The CCP has threatened to invade Taiwan by 2027, to which the U.S. has promised to defend its interests. But U.S. officials say that this may lead to an economic depression worldwide. In the last few years, China has become increasingly aggressive in this region, with CCP military vessels ramming Philippine Coast Guard vessels, as well as firing water cannons at them and even blocking them from carrying out resupply missions. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
More on China. A new bipartisan investigation says gaps in US and allied export rules have allowed Beijing to buy nearly $40 billion worth of advanced chip-making equipment. The House Select Committee on China found that inconsistent restrictions among the United States, Japan, and the Netherlands let non-US suppliers sell to Chinese firms barred from buying American tools. Lawmakers warned that the loopholes are helping Beijing expand its semiconductor production, critical for artificial intelligence and military technology. The report urges tighter coordination and broader bans to limit China's access to chip-making gear. Industry executives say sales to China are now starting to decline as new regulations take effect. Mediators are working to implement President Trump's peace plan for the Gaza Strip. Qatar's foreign ministry says many details still have to be worked out, but all parties involved want to stick with Trump's plan.
All parties have agreed to this plan, so there are no obstacles now in terms of agreeing to the 20 points contained in President Trump's plan. The obstacles now are in implementation.
The spokesperson added that Qatar is neither optimistic nor pessimistic about the outcome of the negotiations so far. A spokesperson for Hamas says the terrorist group is also committed to Trump's plan, so the fighting in Gaza can stop. Germany's foreign minister confirmed that he sees willingness on all sides to implement the points outlined by the president. The German minister is among the officials in Egypt today working out the details of the possible ceasefire. Trump's plan is widely seen as the most promising yet for ending the Israel-Hamas war, which started exactly 2 years ago. Thousands are coming together across southern Israel to honor the memory of loved ones killed by Hamas on October 7th, 2023. The terror attack left more than 1,000 people dead, including hundreds who were attending a music festival. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on how family members are coping with the attack 2 years later.
At the site of the Nova Music Festival, relatives and friends taken hundreds of photos of their loved ones. Yehuda Ramani visits every morning. He thinks about his daughter Sharon, a police officer killed at the event.
We live this day by day unaware of what happened. That's what hurts us the most. We have no idea what happened, and all this time we've been looking for information about what happened that day, and we still don't to this day.
Negotiations for a potential ceasefire between Israel and Hamas are underway in Egypt. But for Ramani, a peace agreement would come too late.
What will it give me? What will it give me? My daughter? I've already paid my price. If there will be a ceasefire or there will not be a ceasefire. What does it matter that the terrorists sit in detention cells and get good food and thick mattresses, and we sit here and cry here every day instead of giving us answers?
Nova Festival attendee Alon Musnikov says revisiting the site doesn't mean much to him. His memory of the attack remains.
Specifically, being here is not too moving for me. Because you live it every day it comes to your mind at least once. The fact that we are here specifically, yes, is a little unsettling, but not significantly.
Hamas's October 7th, 2023 attack killed 1,200 people. Gaza's Hamas-controlled health ministry says the ensuing war has killed over 67,000 Palestinians. The ministry does not distinguish between civilians and Hamas terrorists. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Today is October 7th, meaning 2 years have now passed since the terrorist attacks in Israel. Since President Trump returned to office, he's been working to bring peace to the Middle East. Here's a look back at the efforts so far.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Much has changed in the Middle East since President Trump was inaugurated for the second time in January. One of the administration's goals has been to stop the fighting between Israel and Hamas terrorists, as was highlighted during Trump's inauguration.
Pray that the next 4 years brings peace to Israel and throughout the Middle East.
People in Gaza were cheerful a day before Trump returned to office, as Israel and Hamas had agreed to a ceasefire. Many Trump supporters at the time said Hamas accepted the truce due to Trump's anticipated return and his strong stance on the Gaza conflict. In early February, Hamas released 3 hostages in a highly televised event. Israel later released Palestinian prisoners. The swaps are part of the ceasefire agreements between the two sides. Many criticized the early hostage releases by Hamas, saying they were not safe as the captives were surrounded and swarmed by thousands of people, many of them armed. Israel also withdrew from the Netzarim corridor in Gaza. This allowed thousands of displaced Palestinians to move back to the northern part of the Gaza Strip. But the ceasefire ended after 2 months, on March 18th, after Israel hit targets in the Palestinian enclave. The Israeli military said the strikes were necessary due to reorganization by Hamas, which would have ended up hurting Israel. As spring progressed, the Iranian regime got involved more and more in the fighting against Israel. The Jewish state retaliated, striking military targets in Tehran, which forced some Iranian civilians to flee the city. The escalations led to the U.S. sending stealth bombers to Iran, striking 3 nuclear sites in late June. The pilots took off from the U.S., flew across the globe to Iran, hit the targets, and returned to the U.S.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
The attacks on Iran's nuclear sites stopped the direct fighting between Israel and Iran, bringing an end to what is now known as the 12-Day War. And now, on October 7, 2025, 2 years after the attacks, peace in the Middle East might be closer than ever before. President Trump unveiled a 20-point peace plan during a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in late September.
If we work together, we can bring an end to the death and destruction that we've seen for so many years, decades, even centuries.
Some of the key points of the plan are the withdrawal of Israeli forces to an agreed-upon line, the release of all Israeli hostages, the release of Palestinian prisoners, and a major surge of aid into Gaza. Israel agreed to the plan on the day Trump presented it. Hamas agreed to some of the points last Friday, including the release of all hostages, dead or alive, but has not agreed to disarm or give up a role in governing Gaza in the future. Just on Monday, European leaders said the first phase of the plan could be implemented as soon as this week, potentially pausing the fighting in Gaza and Israel.
President Trump is planning to meet with Edan Alexander today, the American who was held hostage by Hamas for 584 days and believed to be the last surviving US hostage. Meanwhile, high-stake talks between Israel and the Hamas terror group enter their second day today. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney visited the White House for the second time in 5 months. A look at what issues he discussed with President Trump.
That truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. Shen Yun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing?
what is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're gonna benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney made his second visit to the White House in 5 months today. The Canadian leader called President Trump a transformative president as the two sat in the Oval Office for a face-to-face meeting. The two leaders also joked about the merger of Canada and the United States.
We are a transformative president, and since then, the transformation in the economy, unprecedented commitments of NATO partners to defense spending, peace from India, Pakistan through to Azerbaijan, Armenia, disabling Iran as a force of terror, and now, and I'm running out of time, but this is in many respects the most important.
The
what
merger
you created
of Canada
no,
and the
what
United
you
States.
have created.
I'm only kidding.
That wasn't where I was going.
Trump said they will discuss the war in Gaza. He added there's a possibility for peace in the Middle East. Talking about trade conflicts, Trump called trade negotiations with Canada complicated. He said the two countries are in competition.
It's a complicated agreement, more complicated maybe than any other agreement we have on trade, because, we have natural conflict. We also have mutual love. We have great love for each other. I love this. I love Canada and the people of Canada. And Mark feels the same way about here. The problem we have is that they want a car company and I want a car company, meaning the U.S. wants a car company. And they want steel and we want steel. And, so in other countries, they're very far away. And there's no problem. You can compete and you can do. We don't like to compete because we sort of hurt each other when we compete. And so we have a natural conflict. It's a natural business conflict. Nothing wrong with it.
When asked about offering Canada a compromise on US metal tariffs, Trump said compromises have already been made. He added they're working on a plan, saying, quote, we'll get there. Carney also said that both sides will reach the right deal. The two leaders are also talked about shared borders. Trump said his administration is taking a hard stand on drugs entering the US by water. He says this effort is helping Canada too. Carney notes that Canada is also tightening its border. Attorney General Pam Bondi appeared on Capitol Hill today to take questions from senators. Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley focused on new evidence of what he called political weaponization under the Biden administration. Here's Grassley.
Was Attorney General, on the same subject, was Attorney General Garland, Director Wray, and or President Biden's White House aware of the FBI targeting Republican senators? Did they approve it? Now let's be clear, either they knew and allowed it to happen or they didn't know, and if they didn't know, it points to a lack of oversight of Jack Smith's runaway case.
Chairman Grassley, that's what we've been talking about when we refer to the weaponization of government. Operation Arctic Frost was an unconstitutional, undemocratic abuse of power. During Arctic Frost, the FBI also placed 92 linked Republican individuals and Republican groups, such as Charlie Kirk's Turning Point, on their list. This is the kind of conduct that shattered the American people's faith in our government, as I said in my opening statement. We are ending this weaponization. Our FBI is targeting violent criminals, child predators, and other lawbreakers, not sitting senators who happen to be from the wrong political party. Several of your colleagues sitting at this dais were targeted, and others. We will continue to stop that throughout the Justice Department. That is the ultimate weaponization of government.
Bondi stressed in the opening statement that the Justice Department has two main goals under her leadership: to end the weaponization of government and fight violent crime. She said the department has made tremendous progress towards those ends. The Attorney General clashed with Democratic senators over the Epstein files and the deployment of the National Guard to Chicago. Here's Senator Dick Durbin.
Why do you want to keep this secret? The American people don't know the rationale behind the deployment of National Guard troops in my state. The word is, and I think it's been confirmed by the White House, they are going to transfer Texas National Guard units to the state of Illinois. What's the rationale for that?
Yeah, Chairman, as you shut down the government, you voted to shut down the government, and you're sitting here, our law enforcement officers aren't being paid. They're out there working to protect you. I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump. And currently, the National Guard are on the way to Chicago. If you're not going to protect your citizens, President Trump will.
I've been on this committee for more than 20 years. That's the kind of testimony you expect from this administration. A simple question as to whether or not they had a legal rationale for deploying National Guard troops becomes grounds for a personal attack. I think it's a legitimate question.
Bondi referred to Chicago's high crime rate and sanctuary policies, saying the city is sheltering illegal immigrant criminals and gangs. She said the Trump administration is going into cities like Chicago to make these places safe, whether they want it or not. Tennessee is holding a special primary election today to fill a House of Representatives seat. The Republican-leaning district is crucial to Republican control of the chamber. Here are some of the leading candidates. Matt Van Epps is a former Army officer and helicopter pilot. The former commissioner of the Tennessee Department of General Services resigned this year to run. He was also an aide to Governor Bill Lee and was the state's deputy chief operating officer. The district's former representative Mark Green has endorsed Van Epps to fill his seat. Tennessee State Representative Joseph Michael Barrett is currently leading polling by a small margin with 10% support. Barrett is running on a Christian conservative platform and has promised to, quote, fight the liberal elites trying to destroy our way of life. Fellow Tennessee State Representative Gino Buslow is running as well. He's polling second to Barrett with 8.9% support. California voters are weighing a high-stakes redistricting plan that could reshape the balance of power in Congress ahead of the 2026 midterms. The plan, known as Prop 50, would give redistricting power back to the legislature instead of the state's independent commission. Governor Gavin Newsom is leading the campaign for passage, pushing the plan as critical to keeping Republicans from full control in Washington. He argues the measure is critical to limiting Trump's influence in the second half of his term. The plan is intended to offset Trump's moves in Texas to gain 5 Republican districts ahead of the midterms. Republicans, led by former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, argue the plan is a step backwards and would undermine democracy. Voting is already underway and results will be decided when ballots are counted on November 4th. President Trump says he's reviving a long-stalled mining project in Alaska. The move opens a major debate over jobs, energy, and environmental protection in the Alaskan wilderness.
We have a very big signing today having to do with Alaska, a place that I'm very familiar with. And we're making it greater, bigger, and more powerful, and a job producing. It's an economic gold mine, so to speak. And I signed this years ago, and Biden unsigned it for me.
Trump yesterday signed an executive order allowing construction of a 200-mile road to Alaska's Ambler mining district, which he says unlocks access to copper and other critical minerals. The decision reverses the Biden administration's rejection of the road. Biden's Interior Department had cited threats to fish and caribou populations vital to many native communities. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum said the project would unlock minerals needed to win the artificial intelligence arms race against China. Supporters say the road will bring jobs and revenue to Alaska while providing minerals used in cars, electronics, and renewable energy production. But opponents, including dozens of Alaskan native tribes, warn that development would endanger traditional hunting and fishing grounds. If you have any feedback on the show or you have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'll cover more news right after this break.